like this could have been a moment where you stop with this has to be a win. You stop with this has to be a debate, and then all of a sudden we can recognize each other's humanity for a couple seconds, especially someone who has been through this experience firsthand. And yes, their real world example is very important in this case, especially when framing it around whether or not someone is in fact getting consent and if that is involved. The following discussion debate between RGR, Riley Grace Roshong, and Doe will feature very graphic descriptions of child sexual abuse. Doe is a child sexual abuse victim. She is a child trafficking victim. I should say actually survivor, because of its strength in talking about these kind of things. Doe uses its pronouns, so if you're going to be referring to it in the chat, please do so with that. And to begin about this, now, I've said a couple times that there is a very strong anger that is boiling over in all aspects of the media. It doesn't matter if it's Twitter, Facebook, any kind of social media, and it's obviously Twitch politics is not absolved of this. So Twitch politics has become very, very combative. It's become a thing of team sports, and usually it starts from larger teams and then breaks its way all the way down the pipelines there. Are you Team Destiny? Are you Team Vosh? Are you Team Hassan? It doesn't matter whose team you are. Most likely you're going to align with one thing or another. And then people are always surprised when individuals don't fall into these specific categories and everything they do or say doesn't adhere to the exact definitions of this. If you are unfamiliar what was happening prior to this, Doe has made accusations towards Riley that Riley has stated publicly that Doe is either enabling or being a useful idiot to pedophiles in its rhetoric. It has talked, and this all started from the kink in pride debate, which of course comes up every single time that pride is coming along, which, you know, blossomed into this horrifying series of panels. In these panels, people were defending their either whether they feel that it is appropriate for kink to take place at Pride or not, and then that eventually fell into categories of, well, how do we define things like kink? How do we define things like sexuality? How do we define things like observed sexuality? If someone is witnessing someone else and how they're interacting outside, if they are, say, the example that was originally brought up by Doe, I believe, is people who walk around in sandals or bare feet because their feet are exposed. Are they doing that with this express intent of arousing people who have foot fetishes? The answer, of course, is no. You're just walking out in sandals because you like the sandals and they're comfortable. But are there people who have severe foot fetishes who will then see that and become aroused as a result? Yes, that is just part of being out in public and the way other human beings will react to seeing other human beings. If you are wearing skimpier clothes, are you doing that with the express intent of arousing everyone around you, or do you like how you look in it? Now, that is a case-by-case basis. People can dress sexy if they want to dress sexy. People can do it because they want to be perceived as sexy. Thank you, Karo Bakari, for the Prime. I appreciate that. People can dress sexy because they want to appear sexy to other people and elicit a response from that, or they can just dress they want to dress, and they're allowed to do so, obviously within reason. You can't go completely naked running around in public, even if you are a nudist. But at the same time, this has been a discourse that has been happening on for a very long time. I mean, this goes back. It used to be a thing where women couldn't show their knees, or if they showed a little too much shoulder, that might be considered hypersexualized. Or, you know, even if I were a low cut like this, someone could be like, oh, Lance is intentionally trying to show his hairless chest, and part of that is because he wants to elicit a sexual response from people. But is that the same thing as acting out sexually in public or acting towards people sexually? This was the basis for all of this. Now, it reached, obviously, a crisis point when the accusations of pedophilia started being thrown around. What is the worst thing in society? The absolute worst thing you can be. It's a pedophile. It is something that is universally reviled. Even I, in my attempt to be consistent and uphold leftist beliefs, have a very hard time and struggle with this constantly in saying that this requires rehabilitative justice. When someone's like, well, this is a horrifying pedophile who molested like 16 kids, you're like, well, this person is just irredeemable and they should be locked away for the rest of all time so they can't harm other people, stuff like that. It is the worst thing you can be accused of being, and very close to that is being accused of someone who either aids or abets pedophiles or pedophile rhetoric. This has been used historically towards the LGBTQ plus community since this culture war has been going on. Gay men in America, back when being gay was illegal, would be accused of being pedophiles or have the tarnish of being pedophiles. People would try to justify it, saying that homosexual behavior can lead to pedophilic behavior. That is still continuing to this day. You'll find on the alt-right there are movements to add the letter P to the LGBTQ plus lexicon of letters, because they say that, well, that is an alternative lifestyle as well, so why aren't pedophiles included with this? It is being used categorically to erase and or destroy the lives of the queer community, and it's obviously a very dangerous thing. Also, right-wingers frequently use the accusations of pedophilia in order to tarnish individual actors they don't like. Look to Mike Serenovich, for example, who would accuse other broadcasters he doesn't like, whether that's Sam Cedar or Vic Berger, of being pedophiles based on joke tweets they had made. There's also very popular things where people do vigilante pedophile hunting on the internet. And the problem with pedophile hunters, even if they are doing this from a purely standpoint of, I'm only doing this because I want to catch pedophiles, so I'm pretending to be an adolescent online so that I can then meet up with this pedophile, at which point I will have recorded and documented all the proof, and then all that documentation I can submit to the police kind of thing. Even if that is strictly what you're doing in the purest sense, there are also numerous cases of people doing that and falsely accusing other people of being pedophiles, and those people's lives being destroyed as a result. Again, if it's the worst thing you can accuse a person of being, and certainly horrible to be adjacent to a pedophile, then falsely accusing someone of either espousing pedophilic beliefs or being a pedophile themselves is unbelievably damaging. It's where the term pedo-jacketing comes from, because you're falsely accusing someone of being a pedophile without enough evidence to back that up, or you're accusing them of aiding or embedding pedophilia. So it is obviously a very, very serious charge to be made. This was the original basis for the friction that was created between Doe's community and Riley Grace Roshongs' community. Doe claims that Riley had made tweet posts that were directly inferring that she was aiding pedophiles with its rhetoric, while at the same time we're now having a she said it said, where it is a case where the other person in the story says that never happened, and then this eventually boiled over into the debate that took place here. This debate left me feeling absolutely horrible. Not just because of the very extreme graphic content that is going to be brought up in this debate, which it will, so I'm telling anyone who is triggered by graphic descriptions of child abuse, sexual abuse, unfortunately I would just turn away. I wouldn't listen to it. But the reason it upset me so much is that there is a second conversation going on Twitch right now, and that's always been the conversation about debates, about panels, about debate bros, whatever it is. What is the purpose of all this? Now, a lot of people have always been mad at me for not just openly condemning any form of debate or conversation, because I do believe that if you are a public figure and you talk about certain issues, you should be also comfortable speaking about them against someone who might be a detractor, for two reasons. One, it actually will show that you know a little bit more about what you're talking about, or even flesh out your ideas, maybe in real time. But two, it kind of leaves that echo chamber and helps you refine your arguments. Because again, if you come out and you stay saying, hey, this is what I believe, and then you've got a conservative on the other end of that who's like, well, that's just not true, these statistics show otherwise, you might be challenged in a way that you never are if you consistently just stay within your own political sphere and talk about the same things all the time. That's why I've said that I don't think condemning any form of debate is wrong, or sorry, condemning every form of debate is the thing to do, or that no one should ever debate or have interactions, or there's no such thing as panels. I mean, it would be nice to see productive panels. It would be nice for people to create panels in which the whole idea is not to get as many digs and memes and gotchas as possible. And that's one of the things that I think has destroyed this entire medium, because being right is becoming the only thing that's important. And being right, I mean, that's the opposite of good faith. If two people are entering a conversation, you should be entering that conversation with the possibility that you could have your opinions changed, depending on the information that is provided, depending on how things go. And I've seen it happen before in real time. I hosted a debate with Know Nothing TV, in which by the end of it, I think it was like 40 minutes in, he just fully said, well, having taken in this information and learning what I've learned, I will now concede that I was wrong on this stance. And that's pretty much all I have to say. And that was like, wow, that's pretty much as good faith as anything can be if you're willing to listen and learn from what you see. But if these have just become, let's just say, the playground of the wins, the gotchas, the gets, can I get a clip out of this? Can I make my opponent say something that is utterly and bafflingly wrong? Can I get them to be embarrassed? Can I get them and their community to admit loss because it's just ego versus ego? We're no longer really debating ideas. We're no longer, it's not about high level ideas or anything like that. This is about wins and gotchas. And that is a massive problem. It's a massive problem because in this case, and the reason this one was so like deeply upsetting to me, was because we are dealing with an instance in which one of the individuals happens to be a survivor. One of the individuals who has been talking about these issues directly related to pedophilia, directly related to child abduction, directly related to human trafficking, was a victim of those things. And so in a conversation about those issues, to talk about your lived experience is perfectly valid, in my opinion. I think it's perfectly fine to bring this up and then to say, this is something in which I can directly attest to because I was involved within it. That's not a debate tactic. That's not a gotcha. That's not someone trying to set someone up for a trick or anything like that. That is directly pertinent to the conversation at hand, and that's why I was so deeply upset the first time I watched this. I've had time to process the whole thing. I want to watch parts of it now again to rehash it and to kind of get through some of the issues. But again, I do have to prepare everybody for the content because it does get very graphic. Before I start, Jeff_Waldorf, very good to see you here. Everyone go check out Jeff's channel, twitch.tv/Jeff_Waldorf. I don't know, Lumi seems good faith to me, but I haven't watched any of their debates. Oh, Lumi's very good faith.
Can we go a little bit further?
Oh wait, which one?
Oh, I just think that you're leaving off a lot of really important information. Is it okay if we read a little bit more?
Well, in this tweet, it was just the 2 pictures.
Yeah, no, yeah, that tweet is just those 2 pictures, but that wasn't the end of our interaction, right?
There are a lot of other interactions. I asked you if you wanted to talk about gender.
You did ask. You actually said, feel free to talk about gender here when I asked to come on and talk about this other topic.
Yeah, I was interested in talking about multiple topics.
Yeah.
I thought that would be cool because I know that you've talked about gender before, and I am also someone who talks about gender a lot. So I was super hecking interested in talking to you, but like I know that you very strongly do not want to talk about gender with me, and I don't know why, but yeah, you don't have to. I'm not going to force you to.
Yes, this is dope.
So do you mind if I ask you, like, just in here, you said that I repeatedly called you a pedophile. So first, can I get like just like all of the places? Like, can you just tell me? You can tell me if I've
well, how about I ask you a question? Around the time this summer of the Kink at Pride conversation, did you private your Twitter and delete all of your tweets?
Yeah, I did. I was getting a lot of harassment at that point.
Oh, I'm sure you were privating your account. I delete my account every once in a while and reactivate it when I'm feeling a little, I've got some other stuff to do and I don't want to focus on Twitter.
Yeah, the reason I deleted a lot of my content and I privated my account was because I was getting harassed a lot by people, mostly associated with you and your community. Yeah, I was just getting like constantly harassed, and I was just recovering from surgery around that time. So I just had to do that for my own mental health sake.
You had to delete your tweets for mental health?
Yeah, that's a place where people can be able to harass me, yeah.
Well, I mean, you had your account privated. It's a little hard when you're privated.
Well, yeah, I wanted to make sure that when I reopened it, because I wanted to make sure that when I reopened it, that people could not like go through and harass me with the tweets that were still on there. That was around.
Can I ask what harassment means to you? I'm sorry for interrupting. If you want to finish what you were saying, I apologize.
Yeah, so around, I'm trying to remember, was that the Kink at Pride or
it's around July?
It was around, so that was, wait, hold on. So that would have been, that was Eat the Rich, right? There are a lot of people.
Oh, I didn't do anything to you about Eat the Rich.
Okay, well, I know that like around that time, there were a lot of people who were sending me death threats.
Oh, yeah, we saw some of those. I think that's pretty wrong to send you death threats. I think it's pretty inappropriate, pretty wrong. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I've experienced similar things. I'm sorry about that. You have a few members of your community who like to say lots of things about me.
Wait, hold on. So do you have, wait, hold on. Who in my community has done anything like that?
Gammy.
Gammy? Hold on, wait, Gammy is not part of my community.
She's in your chat right now.
Is anyone who's in my chat? Wait, hold on. You are in my chat.
Yeah, after I was blocked from here, because okay.
Hold on. Yes. No, hold on. Hold on. I'm talking to a lot of people who I disagree with. This is the first time that Gammy has been in my chat in months. All right.
Okay, that's fair. But do you remember when you posted a tweet a while back and you said, here's some really good accounts that I think are really important for you to follow for good trans voices, and one of them was Gammy?
Yeah, no, I remember that.
So at some point you agreed with some of the things that she was doing.
Yeah, I wasn't aware.
I'm not aware of who all these people are. Okay, so this is Doe. Doe is the one who was accused of either aiding or intentionally or unintentionally aiding pedophile rhetoric online a number of times, and had to deal obviously with the harassment that came with that accusation. And now this is a conversation between it and her accuser, in which it's trying to bring up some of these topics directly for the first time. This is the first time I think the two of them have spoken about this issue since it first started.
Aware of a lot of the more problematic things that Gammy had done. It's actually why I ended up deleting that, or part of the reason why I ended up deleting that and disregarding that. But also, this isn't part of the comment that this isn't what we're talking about. You came here.
I mean, they're all kind of relevant. You were talking about harassment, and I was just curious what you consider harassment.
Well, you're asking me why I privated my account and deleted it. So
well, I'm asking why you deleted tweets when you were telling people that others were
hold on, wait, are you saying?
Yeah.
All right. So is the allegation? So I just want to be very clear. Do you have any tweets, or are there any tweets that you're alleging where I called you a pedophile?
There were. I don't have any screenshots on me. You deleted them.
So, wait. So hold on. So because I would dispute that is the case, but if I say that, then are you just going to accuse me of lying?
Accuse you of lying for I'm sorry, say that again.
So I would say that I do not remember, to the best of my ability, ever tweeting calling you a pedophile. Do you have any screenshots or evidence of that being the case?
I have a video of you saying that I intentionally or unintentionally was justifying pedophilia. And
okay, we're going to go over that. But
we are going to go over
examples. Yeah, no, we'll go over that. But I just want you said multiple times. You said here that I called you a pedophile multiple times. I want to know exactly when those multiple times were.
You deleted your Twitter or your tweets. I can't go find them, but I can find the one.
Wait, so I would dispute. I would say that I never tweeted calling you a pedophile.
Okay. You can hold that. I can't push you on that. I believe that you did. You believe that I didn't. I'm not going to call you a liar. That's fine. But you had a video in which you said it.
I had a video. All right, so let's talk about that video, because I think that's what you tweeted here, right?
Yeah, and then your girlfriend, I'm assuming, that's what I was told.
All right, hold on. I'm not going to talk about the video. All right, hold on. I'm not here to defend what my girlfriend said. All right, we're going to talk about what I said. All right? So you're saying that this video is evidence of me calling you a pedophile. That's what you're saying.
I do think saying that someone is intentionally or unintentionally justifying pedophilia is calling them a pedophile, because what you're saying is that they think it's okay to do sexual acts to children.
No. Don't twist my words.
I don't think I twisted anything.
I don't think that you are being very honest when you say that.
So there's two things to go from this, because I think they are going to get stuck in the technicality. Did I literally call you a pedophile? Did I say you are a pedophile? Or did I say that your statements either support or unintentionally support pedophilia? In either direction that you look at it, you are aiding or helping pedophiles through your rhetoric is the accusation, which I think is a fair one.
All right, so we can listen to the clip right now. I'll listen to it with my chat.
Okay,
right?
I guess I have to. Hold on, let me come pull it up really quick. I don't have mine open.
All right, hold on.
There's a second clip. Here's a second clip.
So you continue using level of unintelligible nonsense, saying that kink is defined in relation to sexuality, therefore involving children in sexual act. This is intentional or not the stupidest sleight of hand I've ever seen. What the fuck are you talking about?
That's an insane thing to say to me. I don't know like how that's a defensible statement. Like if you're defining something in relation to sexuality and then you are suggesting that children should be involved in that, you're involving children in sexuality. That's the most logically valid string of words that I can think of off the top of my head, right? So like,
wait, are you done already? I think
I'm waiting for. I was waiting for you.
I'm sorry. I have a a second one that has a little bit more context. That's a little bit longer than the one that I quote tweeted with, but that's okay.
Okay, so
we can both play it at the same time now if you want.
Thank you for the 200 bits. Just when you say the accusation is fair, which one do you mean? I think the accusation by Doe is a fair one. Like, if you're saying that what you are doing is either intentionally or unintentionally supporting pedophilia, then you are accusing that person of aiding pedophiles. Like, that is a very serious accusation to make.
All right, wait, which one are you playing? Is it the same clip?
Well, here, how about I do this?
What?
I've got this one that's got a little bit fuller context.
All right, when you say fuller context.
Oh shit! I tried to DM it to you so you could see it. It's just the previous part of the video. I clicked the one part because it's the part where you actually say pedophile, but the minute leading up to it, I also have a separate video of. But we can just watch the quick one if you really want.
Yeah.
The 20-second one.
Yeah, well, it's the one that you tweeted at me.
Yeah, the quote tweet. We can watch that one really quick. Ready?
Okay.
All right, 3, 2,
really
1.
Weird. Now, a lot of people, really weird. From really parts of the internet, are coming out with really weird takes that apparently kink is fine to do in front of children. We should be able to justify
in front of children. We should be able to justify doing it in front of them, even if it's explicitly involving them in a sexual act. Like, what the fuck is going on? This is unironic. Oh my god, they're either negligently justifying pedophilia or intentionally.
Use dead. Debate bro drama. Is this all the Serfs TV is now? I guess you didn't watch any of the rest of the stream, but that's fine. Anyways, yeah, we're gonna continue.
Justifying pedophilia. I have no idea what the fuck it is.
Okay. So
Yeah. And
okay.
the lead
So I'm gonna ask you. So where in that clip did I call you a pedophile?
when you say that someone is intentionally or unintentionally, well, there's a couple places.
No, hold on.
Let me
hold
finish
on.
my
That is
sentence.
not.
Can I
that
please
is
finish my
not
sentence? You
calling
asked me
you
a really
pedophile.
direct question, and you won't let me finish my
Clean up your
sentence.
room.
All right, that is
Keep
not
going,
calling
thank
you a
you.
pedophile.
Appreciate
That's
it.
saying that you advocated, that you made an argument that is typical to expect that pedophiles would make. All right? That is my argument, and I stand by that argument. We can go into the merits of it if you want
Let's
to.
go into the merits, because clearly just talking about this one sentence isn't going to go anywhere. So I think it's prudent of us to talk about.
So even if it ends there, that you make the same arguments pedophiles make, and that's the only thing that you're leaving it at, that still is a very, very serious accusation to levy on someone.
Your
So,
definition.
So let's start with exactly what you said. All right? So you said, and I quote, "Some people like feet. If you go shoeless to a public event because your partner likes feet, you're not, quote, involving children in a sexual act." That's what you said, right?
That is what I said.
You're talking about a foot fetish.
I am talking about a foot fetish. I'm proud of you.
Okay. So I want you to answer me this question. If you are getting off your partner's foot fetish around children, do you think it's not a little reasonable for someone to say, okay, this seems like something that a pedophile may argue, and this person either knows what they're doing or they are negligent and they're saying it even though they don't understand its implications?
So, nowhere in this tweet has anyone talked about getting off.
Wait, hold on. What do you think happens when you appeal to someone's sexual kink? Or sorry, we're talking about fetish. We're talking about
sexual desires is what we're talking
about.
about.
Yeah.
And also, it's unintentionally appealing to it is what they're discussing. Like, if someone walks out in public in sandals, are you intentionally trying to appeal to every foot fetishist on the street, or are you just wearing sandals because you like the way the sandals felt in the middle of everything? Use too many days. It's 1 to 2 hours of debate bro drama nearly every day. Well, off to the issues. So I started, and again, I guess you missed the start of the stream. I mean, we started at the 2 hour and 30 mark. So if you want to watch 2 hours and 30 minutes of news coverage, you can go rewind and watch that part. But this is actually more than just debate bro drama. This is actually pretty crucial. Not just the issues involving like the LGBTQ community, which I was taking very seriously during the time of the Pride of Kink, because I thought this whole discourse was quickly devolving into conservative talking points. But also, this is very indicative of all the problems with, and it's what I started the statement with, the debate bro atmosphere surrounding what should be very serious conversations, incredibly difficult ones to have. They shouldn't be framed in the like, I gotcha, we're gonna prove you're wrong, I'm right, here comes the dunk, here comes the clip, here comes the highlight reel, oh, now it's trending on Twitter, and then the cycle continues, the next person to do it. Like, this whole conversation to me was one of the most striking examples of what is wrong with all of that.
Yeah, we're talking about getting off someone else's
No,
fetish.
you keep saying getting off. Why do you keep saying that?
Because that's the only implication. All right, so I guess...
Can I give you an implication? You're allowed to ask questions if you're confused.
I mean, I'm very much not confused, I can guarantee you that, but let me ask you a question.
Well,
so
you haven't represented me correctly yet, so I think you might be just a little bit confused.
I'm going to doubt that, but let me ask you a question. So what is your definition of a sexual act?
So sex acts is like super complex. I think the biggest issue that I actually have, and I mean not biggest, but the first issue I have is probably your definition of sex act. If I remember correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'll give you a chance to in just a second. That a sex act is any action that occurs with sexual intent, sexual desire, right? Is that about right?
Roughly, it's when you do something intentionally and primarily appealing to yours or someone else's sexual desires.
Yeah, okay. So I think I got it about right. So I think that this is so broad as to be useless, and I don't think that any legal system defines it this way. For example,
I would disagree.
Can I finish my sentence, please?
Yeah, go ahead, but I'm just saying, like, I disagree with that.
I just don't know why you have to interrupt me when I'm in the middle of talking.
Well, I'm just saying that I disagree with that.
Okay, well, in my state, I looked up the sex acts law, and they actually, so I live in North Carolina, and criminal law designates differences between sex acts, sexual contact, sexual activity, and sexual penetration. They define sex acts as the sexual contact of one or more sex organs, including but not limited to cunnilingus, fellatio, analingus, or anal intercourse, or the penetration of any object into the genital or anal opening of another person's body. Sexual contact is a focus on touching a person's, quote, intimate parts. Sexual penetration is, we can understand that. And sexual activity, the main thing they listed there was masturbation.
Okay,
so we have a lot of different, it's a very varied, the legal system is a very varied way of approaching these kinds of discussions. So
I actually, there's some interesting context because I've actually taken, so as you know, I'm a law student. I've actually taken criminal law. Are you familiar with the history of how we got into like our modern common law rape standard?
I probably don't know the history as well as you do, being a law student, but I was actually in the middle of talking. I don't know,
Well,
again,
you're-
why you
you're
interrupted
going
me.
out
I was actually, you asked me a really direct question, and I was actually walking my way through it. I don't know why you keep doing this.
I mean, like, if you keep talking and you just keep going on and you...
I
give
just
a
listed
long-winded
legal
answer.
systems sex acts and the way that it differentiates between it, because one of my points
Is there
here
anything-
is
sorry,
that this is a
anything-
very nuanced conversation, and I think you lose some of the nuance that I think is really important to this conversation.
You're right. So we can go through that and we can talk about why those definitions are in fact problematic. Because the history of the evolution of the legal standard for what constitutes a sex act has actually been to broaden it more over time. Historically, rape was only the penetration of a vagina by a penis by a man of a woman,
Yeah, that's true.
using excessive force. But the reason why that's not the standard anymore, is because we realize that actually sex acts are a lot more than just physical penetration.
That's true.
Yeah, that is true. So I would not say that the law is a good heuristic to be able to rely on in this conversation, since we are able to recognize that sex and sex acts are a lot more than just basic forms of penetration.
I agree. I actually listed things that weren't penetration. I listed multiple things that weren't penetration.
And I would say that we still need a broader understanding of sex acts, because you end up excluding a lot of very harmful situations that run into the problem of violating one's consent.
That is where I was going to move the conversation, as a question of consent. And because you seem to, again, correct me if I'm wrong, have a view that we consent to seeing things in public, that's like a thing that happens.
No, wait, hold on. My exact view in respect to consent, especially as it concerns sex, is that if someone is going to involve you in a sex act or do something around you as a sex act, then you need to acquire their consent to do that. If you do not, then you violate their consent, you categorically cause them harm. Children cannot consent.
Wait, how do you cause them harm?
Because you're violating a fundamental deontological rule.
That doesn't mean anything. Can you explain that?
Yeah, there are certain things which, if you do, they are inherently morally wrong. Murder is an example. You do it is inherently morally wrong.
My, I don't know if you can pick it up, but my fire alarm is going off right now. Please do not be alarmed at home. There's no fire going on in my building, and this, I guess, goes double for if Twitch is watching me. This is a fire alarm test, which has been going on all day. It's going to be done a couple more times. So just so you know, if you hear fire alarms in the background, the building is not on fire. It would be actually a very unfortunate time for a fire to happen in the building, because it would be happening directly when the fire alarm testing is going on. But just so you know, that little buzzing you hear every now and then is the emergency test. It's why Chico looks kind of upset, because he's not enjoying it. But I will mute myself until that ends.
Wrong.
Why?
Violating someone's consent is inherently morally wrong. The reason why goes back to the Kantian categorical imperative. If we were to do certain things in society, then that would mean that we end up leading to a contradiction, whereas we end up not being able to have the thing that we wanted to begin with. If you go around violating other people's consent, then we end up justifying a world where anyone can violate anyone's consent. We no longer have consent. And I really care about consent. So I say we do everything we can to respect consent, especially concerning sex.
I think we should absolutely respect consent too. I think it's really important. I just don't think that when it comes to the public, that there is a very good argument for seeing something, being involved in it. Now we're not even in the.
No, hold on. No, it's not the seeing the thing. All right, that's not the issue. The issue is not seeing the. Well, I mean, like it's sort of seeing the thing.
It is. You say that it's about seeing that they don't have. You haven't gotten the consent of others to see it, to be around you while you do it.
Wait, hold on. No,
I thought that's what you just said. I'm sorry if it's not. I was just.
We're focusing on consent, and the consent is either about the risk. It's either about being involved in the sex act or the risk of being involved.
Okay. So, what does being involved mean? Because it seems like
the sexual act. There's a lot of different sex acts, I would say. For example, we can imagine situations where people, like in the BDSM community, are engaging in a sexual act where both are getting off despite the fact that they may not be touching each other at all. Like, we can easily imagine this kind of a conversation. Or we can imagine, like, if someone is watching porn, we can imagine that, like, oh, well, in that case, they're not touching another person. They're probably engaging in some kind of sex act. Or like phone sex, which has sex in the name. You're not talking to another person. We would call that a sex act. Or you are talking to another person, but it's digital, right? Like, the whole point is that I want to make sure that we have a comprehensive definition of sex, because I think that any of these instances you would agree with me constitute sex, and if not, we end up getting into incredibly dangerous situations.
Any of the things that you just listed constitute sex?
I would say that they are sex acts specifically. Like, for example, let's say here we'll go through some hypotheticals. Let's say that you are interacting. Let's say that you have like a crush on or you know someone else who has like a crush on a coworker wherever it is that you work.
It's hypothetical, got out really quick. So I know somebody who has a crush on a coworker.
Okay. And let's say that in that instance, the person who has the crush takes a picture of the coworker without their knowledge and ends up masturbating to it without their consent. Would you agree with me that this is something which is morally wrong?
Now, in this example, the first thing I thought of is okay, so in terms of consent, if you take in their photo without their consent, yes, that's wrong. You should get their consent to do so. 2, if you are pleasuring yourself to the idea or the imagination of another human being, I don't think you've involved them until you tell them. Once you've told them, then yes, then you've violated their consent. If you masturbate to just the imagination of your friend or your friend's partner or something like that, and that's where it starts and stops, well, I mean, outside of becoming the thought police, there's not much more to be said about that. If you then go up to that coworker and you're like, yesterday, I dreamt of you and then I masturbated, you have violated their consent because you are involving them in the act itself. That is where you go beyond that line.
I think that the taking depends on the kind of picture and the expectation of what?
Let's just say that it's just them in their work uniform.
I don't know if I can morally condemn someone for masturbating and thinking about somebody. Taking a picture without somebody's consent is like the strange part.
Okay, hold on. Now, all right, you have to. All right, let's elaborate on that then. All right, then let's say that after that coworker masturbates to the person who they did not acquire the consent, be able to masturbate to that person, that they go and they tell that person that they masturbated to them. Would you reasonably expect that the person who was masturbated to without their knowledge would probably feel violated to some degree?
I don't have to consider it. It's happened to me. Yeah, it's a little weird.
Okay, cool. So it's not just weird. You would say that that's morally wrong.
We're gonna have a moral problem in this debate. I'm trying not to like make it the point because it doesn't matter. But
no, wait, hold on. It absolutely does. Violating someone's consent is paramount. I want to make sure that we are protecting people.
I don't believe in morals the way that you do. So I'm trying to avoid that kind of conversation because we don't need to have a meta-ethical conversation in this discussion. I don't think that I could say that it's morally wrong to masturbate to somebody, but I think telling them is strange. I don't know if I would say it's morally wrong. It clearly is going to make them uncomfortable. But
now wait, so hold on. So if you masturbate to someone else and you don't get their consent, then it's fine as long as they don't find out?
Yeah, I would say that there are ways that it can be wrong.
What are the ways?
I think that
like it can be creepy. It could be definitely weird for sure. I mean, if you're masturbating to your friend's partner, if it's like, oh yeah, that guy I really love, so I'm gonna, fire up the dildo tonight and masturbate to him, but happens to be my friend's partner. I mean, that's where I would place that. But in terms of violating their consent, I don't think you violated their consent until you tell them. If you tell them, you are involving them in that sex act. You are then going up to them and being like, yeah, so I masturbated to you yesterday. I'd be like, yeah, okay, well, gross, and also weird, and why? And yes, then you are, I say, morally trespassing on someone's consent.
That sexual desire towards children
No,
would
hold
be-
on, wait, pause. No, we're talking about the nature of what is a sex act. Do not pivot away from this.
I
Why would it
wasn't
be
trying to pivot
wrong?
away. I was trying to tell you an example of where I thought it would be wrong.
Okay, so the example would be wrong if it would be children?
Yeah, I think that there's something inherently predatory about.
Right, so what if we're talking about an adult?
Yeah, that's what I was working to. I don't think that I can say that it's wrong to think about somebody and masturbate to them.
Even if you don't. All right, so why do you think that if they ended up going to tell, if you masturbate to someone, that if you go and you tell that person you masturbated to them, why do you think that they might be a little put off?
Because you've made them into an object a little bit in your mind.
Well, also at that point, and I know Doe doesn't get into this, but at that point you have violated their consent, right? Because then you're involving them in a sexual act in which they did not give you permission to do so. But up until that point, I mean, if you're going to begin doing this kind of thought police thing where any single time that you have masturbated to anything in your imagination, that is morally wrong and shame on you, you're bad kind of thing, like this is a really weird and dangerous precedent to set. As long as you're not involving the other people in it, this is completely within someone's own imagination at the end of the day.
Even if you consider them as a full subject, it's objectification is
Hold on,
kind of
no,
what we
the
would
average
call it there.
person, no, the average for, oh, hold on. Yeah, and that's not necessarily the case.
Sure.
All right, that's not necessarily the case. It could
I
be the
agree.
case where no, you actually like totally no, you just like you're really infatuated with them. You see them totally as a person, but you masturbate to them without their consent.
Sure, I think that there's still a level of objectification that can occur there. It doesn't have to, but yeah.
So
But
wait, do
it
you
can
think
make you
that's the only
feel.
reason? Do you
can
think
make
that's
you
the only
feel like
reason
an
that
object when you're
they
told.
off put if they're told that they were masturbated to without acquiring their consent?
Can you ask that question again? I was trying to talk. I didn't know that you're talking. What'd you say?
All right? Do you think that is the only reason why someone who learns that they were masturbated to without their consent would be off put at learning that new knowledge?
Do I think that they would be off put? Is that what you just asked?
I'm asking you, do you think that the reason that you gave is the only reason why?
No, I've already said that. I think that the reasons can be multitudinous. Like it.
Like what?
Well, becoming a sexualized object in the mind of
You said
somebody
that
else
already.
is itself. I know I did.
So say something else.
I don't know the reasons that everyone might come away with feeling a negative feeling from a particular event. Lots of
Okay,
things
I'm
can
going
lead
to
up
give
to
you
that.
the answer.
Now,
The answer is violating their consent.
but you
that
didn't
is the
violate their
reason why.
consent.
You did violate their consent. Yes, you did. If
So-
this person is hypothetical, masturbated someone else, and did not acquire their consent to do so, you violated their consent.
How did you violate?
I fundamentally disagree with that statement. I don't think you're violating people's consent by imagination, by imagining them, because they're unaware of what you're doing. And I think it would be a very dangerous precedent to say that and to extrapolate it to anything else. Like what you were doing in the privacy of your own mind stays in the privacy of your own mind until you involve the other individual. Once you've gone to that other individual again and been like, hey, I masturbated to you yesterday, then you are now violating their consent because you have involved them in the act itself.
Violate their consent.
Because you were able to use an aspect of them to get yourself off sexually without their permission.
You used
Oh, hi,
your
Kezbox.
mind to
Everyone go
get
check out
yourself
Kezbox's
off.
channel.
You used that person, the image
based.
of that person.
Yeah.
Hold on, wait, all right. I'm gonna ask you another question. No, hold on. Is the problem like if someone does not know that you use them to get off sexually, then it's fine?
Well, it depends on how you use them.
Why does it depend?
Well, because there are some ways where you can physically use somebody, and there are some ways in which it remains entirely in your mind. I don't think desire itself requires somebody else's consent.
Why does the physicality matter? There are easily sex acts that we can imagine which are not strictly physical.
Can you name one for me?
Like masturbating to someone.
But you didn't do an action to them.
Yeah, but you're using them. You are
using
their
your mind. In your mind, you're imagining them. If you have the picture, like I said, the picture seems to be like the weird part of that, but like.
All right, hold on. I'm going to give you another example, and I'm going to ask you to distinguish it. All right? Because I'm trying to get exactly like what your morals are here. If you have someone, let's say that you have a person who goes out into public, all right?
Yeah, so
and they have a humiliation fetish.
Yeah.
Okay? And they go out in front of anyone. It could be children, but just anyone who has not provided consent. And they, I don't know, let's say that they like defecate themselves, all right? And
They had a scab fetish too, Jesus.
I don't know why you're trying to get like ad homs or whatever in.
Wait,
Anyway.
Wait, no, that wasn't it. That wasn't. I said I don't know why they have a scab fetish. I was joking. You gave them one fetish and then you added another. I just was being silly. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to ad hom you.
We're talking about someone with a humiliation fetish, all right? The point is that they go out into public, all right? And then around other people, they defecate themselves. Other people see them. And as a consequence of other people seeing them, they orgasm. specifically because other people watch them, would you say that this violates the consent of the other people watching them?
No, I don't think so.
What? All right, hold on, wait, no, why? You need to justify that right now.
Because I don't think you consent to things you see in public.
So literally, if you are using the sight of somebody else to be able to sexually satisfy yourself, you're totally fine with that.
I just don't think that you violated their consent. We can maybe talk about other parts of
Why?
it.
Like, if this crosses over into people who expose themselves publicly or people who pleasure themselves publicly, that's a very different matter, all right? That is someone violating the consent of anyone who can see them because they're in public and they're physically pleasuring themselves in many different ways, right? If this comes down to it's whether or not someone is at home or someone is, taking their imagination and sexual imagery and then pleasuring themselves to it and not telling the person, or maybe doesn't even know the person. It could be to a celebrity, right? Like, have you ever masturbated to the image of you hooking up with your favorite celebrity crush or whatever that is? That does not, I believe, violate the consent of the other party. Again.
Why do you not violate their consent?
Because you don't consent to things you see in public. I've said this like
this isn't we're not talking about just seeing something in public. We're talking about using someone else, specifically in this case their site, in order to get off.
Yeah, I don't think you violated their consent. You didn't do anything to them.
Oh my, no, see, I don't know what your ethics are. I absolutely reject this. I 1 bajillion% reject this.
Okay.
If you generalize this is an awful precedent to set.
Consent, I don't know why consent extends to what you see. What is
because
that?
In this case, you are using somebody else to gratify yourself sexually in that moment. They're aware, all right? They are aware. Everyone is involved in this. There just happens to not be any physical contact.
Sure.
So you're fine. This person, the person that we're talking about, literally uses other people for sex without their consent. You're fine with that.
They use the vision of other people. You keep saying like using the people. It's a weird.
They are. They have a humiliation fetish. They can only get off from the vision, like from being humiliated in front of other people.
Sure.
So you're fine with that.
I just don't think it's violating other people's consent. I think we can talk about other parts.
Well, hold on. So what if those other people are children? Are you still fine with it?
If you do it intentionally around children, I think that the intentionality there is pretty weird, pretty
why?
fucked up.
All right, why? You need to justify. No, don't just say, "Oh, it's pretty weird, it's pretty fucked up." Tell me why it's bad.
Yeah, you asked me. I will. I think that it's fucked up because you're that desiring children sexually, I think, is inherently predatory.
With some wet ass p-word. P-word is.
But why is that not fun? Oh, wait. What if they're not like trying to do it around children? What if it just happens to be a child?
Yeah, if there's not intentionality, I would probably say that that I don't think that they should if they notice the kids are around. But like, if the intentionality is not there, I wouldn't say that it's like immoral or predatory.
So we need to go through this. So if we're saying, you are just committing to this position that if you have someone with a humiliation fetish, they go out in public, they defecate themselves in.
Oh, this conversation gets way more intense. So if you're just tuning in now and you're like, wait, are they talking about some very, let's just say content warning style topics? It ramps up quite a bit. So again, I've got the content warning right here. Do not listen to this if these are things that will trigger you, because yes, it becomes much more graphic from here on out.
Front of children, it's not like they were trying to like be in front. They just happened to be there. The children just happened to be there. You know, it could have been any person, but the children just happened to be there. And then, as a consequence of the children seeing that person defecate, and but for that sight, then that person orgasms, and you're fine with that.
Can you see like the last sentence, the last little bit?
Yeah. So, person, humiliation fetish, goes out in public. The only people around are children. They aren't necessarily looking to find children.
Wait, the only people around are children?
Yeah, the only people. Or we can say there's I don't know, there can be a combination. It's mostly children.
Like I said, I think if there are children around, you should probably be careful about something like that, where you are actively getting off. But
why? No. So I'm going to finish. All right, so then I'm going to finish the hypothetical and we're going to explore. All right. Then actually, you know what? Now we will just say that let's just say it just happens to be that there's only children around. Maybe they go to a playground. It just happens to be the nearest place by them. All right. They live right next to a playground. It's not like they actually really, want to get off in front of it. It's just the kids just happen to be there and they're the only people there. So if this person goes out and they're wearing their diaper or whatever, and they defecate themselves, and the only people around are children, and as a consequence of the children see.
See, like, we're starting to get to it. We haven't gotten there yet, but this is starting to become what I find is kind of the problem with just like the online debate culture, is that the intent behind this and setting up this hypothetical is to isolate where exactly is the moral stance on Doe on this very specific issue in relation to what people are doing, if it is viewable or seen by children. I think Doe has been very clear on its stance on this position, but now as we're getting into the weeds, the hypothetical is becoming more and more complex. We've now got a person with a humiliation fetish. We've got a second person who is going to defecate themselves, and by the other person defecating themselves, the person with the humiliation fetish is going to somehow achieve orgasm through that. This entire act is being done in the presence of children. Where do you stand on this entire situation now?
Seeing them defecate, then they orgasm. You are fine with that?
No, I've already said that if there's children around, that you probably shouldn't do it.
No, the reason that you said it was bad if children are around is because you specifically are interested in using the children. This is not the case here.
I've said multiple things. That's not the only thing that I've said.
I'm just saying this because people keep asking in the chat.
Around children?
I think that getting off from the gaze of children is what would be the harm there. That their gaze is the problem, because the humiliation is that children are seeing you.
Wait. Explain. Wait, hold on. Wait, what harm are you talking about? What exactly is? What is the
question? What harm are you talking about?
I'm talking about violating someone's categorical right to consent.
Can you explain to me in what way you have a consent? You have the ability to consent to things you see in public.
You keep saying, no, hold on, stop. You keep trying to bring it back to seeing.
Well, because it is seeing.
No, this is using someone else. The seeing just happens to be the way that they're using.
There are multiple cases.
We're talking specifically
I know
about
that we're talking specifically
someone else for sex. That is what we're talking about. We're talking about using someone else for sex. This is just one way where you can use someone for sex in a way where it's clearly sex, even though they're not physically in contact.
I would be careful about saying it's sex itself.
It's a sex act. And also, wait, hold on. There are ways to be able to have sex where you're not physically in contact. Like, this is a sex act. If you want to try and parse the difference between what's a sex act.
I don't agree with your definition of sex acts. We might have to back up to there if you want to move this conversation forward in a useful direction.
Hold on. The reason why we're talking about this is because I'm justifying my definition of a sex act. This is what I'm doing right now.
You're asking me a bunch of questions. You haven't justified yourself. You just want to push me into somewhere.
No, because your outcome, your definition of sex would mean that this is not a sex act and there's no violation.
I haven't even given a definition of sex.
Wait, hold on. You gave several definitions from a legal. I
listed the fact that there are many ways that different legal systems, and I picked mine alone because there were, not because I live here, but in mine alone, there were multiple different ways that they defined sex. I was just pointing out that it's a very complex problem, and that I didn't think that your flattening of the complexity was very useful.
And I would say it is useful because it gives us clear answers for how to be able to deal with these kinds of situations.
Well, sure, you want to condemn these people, but like I don't think that just wanting that itself means it's better.
Wait, no, I think that, no, this is the whole point of being able to show bad outcomes of different systems. All right, right now I'm showing you the benefit of mine, because I would say that being able to use a definition of sex act which focuses primarily on intent is able to give us clear answers for these kinds of questions, when otherwise, if we want to go off of one that requires, for example, physical contact, that you cannot be able to resolve.
So I think that even if we can say that which I don't agree, but even if we wanted to say that like your definition makes it work in this example, it actually fucks up a bunch of other examples that I think are really important.
Like what?
Well, because your definition of sex acts is about the intent, and especially like primary intent, I think is how you said it maybe, to elicit sexual desire in some way, whether for yourself or someone else, right?
That's about right.
Well, I personally, and maybe I'm a little different from everybody, that's okay. But personally, I like to feel sexy. I like to feel sexy even in public. I'm not getting off in public, but I like to. I'm sorry, you said something?
We're not talking about feeling sexy.
Wait, what? Oh, can I actually like fully explore what I'm saying? Sure. Like I know that you're not talking about being sexy or feeling sexy, whatever. But what I'm talking about is I choose the things that I wear and how I present myself with the intent for my own sexual desire to express myself sexually and to feel it sexually.
Wait, hold on. We're not talking about like the intent. I'm trying to figure out, wait, hold on. So are you saying that you dress the way that you do to like get off in public?
You keep going back to getting off. No.
Talking about appealing to sexual desires.
Yeah. Have you never felt something sexual without it being coming?
I was gonna say, like, sexual desire does not start and stop with the orgasm itself.
Wait, no. Or hold on, I'm gonna answer that question because this is ridiculous.
I'm sorry.
The way that people arrive at like orgasm is by appealing to their sexual desires. That's what you do. All right,
just
and
the appealing doesn't usually do it.
Be able to dress and like dress attractively for reasons other than trying to appeal to sexual desires or interests. Like this is like the woke version of she was asking for it.
I don't think it is.
I
think that someone can express themselves sexually without them inviting someone to touch them.
That's not appealing to sexual desires or interests. That is not the same.
I think it is. If I want men to look at me in a particular way, I can dress a particular way to show that, to cause that reaction.
Wait, no, what? So wait, hold on. Is this the... So you're specifically trying to dress in a particular way to get men, like in order to appeal to men's sexual desires.
And by the way, just for the record, everybody, this can apply to both. You may dress in a particular form which you consider sexy because you want to be sexually desired, and you can also dress in that same form and not want to be sexually desired. You simply enjoy the way it looks, and you enjoy the way it makes you feel, with absolutely no intention of provoking sexual desire from anyone else. That both are completely valid. And you could also, again, dress in a way which is provocative because you want to elicit that sexual desire.
Desires or interests.
Really anyone's, but yeah, I picked men. Yeah. Like I think that I can and have and probably will in the future try to dress to appeal to someone's sexual desire.
Since she was asking for it, got brought up. That's one of the biggest problems with this, and basically, like, not that RGR is doing this here, but people who engage in rape apologia. If you were saying that, like, well, she was dressed incredibly sexy, or they just say slutty or something like that, and what were they expecting at the end of the day? Like, this person was dressed in such a manner that obviously was going to elicit men to have such strong sexual desires that it's only natural what happened. That's like the old-timey she was asking for defense, where that is never a defense for anything. The action and the crime is 100% in the person who is committing the sexual assault. Always. Just 100%. There is no, she was asking for it. You can definitely, if you are, trying to help people, tell them to be safer in their environments. Like, hey, I wouldn't walk down this one alley at night because certain people have been assaulted there. It's dangerous. That's just giving advice because I want to help you as a friend. But that doesn't change the fact that if you did walk down that alley, that same alley, and someone did sexually assault you, that is no fault of your own. That is a fault 100% on the person who's committing the sexual assault.
Like feeling desired. It makes me feel good.
Okay, no, I would absolutely disagree with that. I think that there are plenty of other reasons why women or anybody can be able to dress in a certain way, aside from just like sexually appealing to someone else, right?
Sure, I agree that
I
you can
dress
do
the way
it
that
for
I
a lot
do
of different
because
reasons.
I'm trying to like get off men, or I'm trying to like appeal to the sexual desires of women. No, like I dress the way that I do because I just like the way that I feel. I'm not trying to like get off other people.
Well, you keep going back to get off. I dress partially sometimes because I like the way that it feels and looks, but other times I like to sort of sexualize it a little bit. I like to feel sexy. I like to have sexual desire from other people. It makes me feel good.
All right, wait, hold on. Then we're talking about something completely different than what you were talking about in the example. All right,
Well,
what you're talking about in that instance is not that is doing something where it is not the primary reason why you're dressing that way. Where you just said that it's a part of it in the hypothetical that you talked about in the tweet that we are talking about right now. You said some people like feet. If you go to a public event primarily because your partner likes feet, you're not involving them in a sex act. No, you're talking about doing something primarily to appeal to the sexual
I
act.
primarily dress on some days. That's what I meant by sometimes. I primarily dress on some days for sexual desire, both of myself, of looking at myself and feeling like I am a sexual being, and for what other people give to me, the sexual desire.
Then I would say no. Then I would say that you're absolutely violating other people's consent. Then
I don't understand how me wanting to feel good is
And yeah, so that's where I could not take a stronger disagreement, because I don't think you're violating someone's consent by dressing sexy. And again, there's two polar extreme examples here. There's the one where if you just walk out on a hot summer day and you are wearing sandals, you have absolutely zero sexual desire. You don't enjoy feet. You could be like myself. You don't have any kind of a foot fetish. You go outside and you're just wearing sandals because it's hot outside. I had absolutely no desire to show anyone my feet sexually. I was just wearing them because they were comfortable. Someone walks by who happens to have a foot fetish, and they all of a sudden are aroused, by the way. This is not simply a sex act. It's not like people just walk along the street and just come in their pants. It's not like, the way society works for the most part. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple people who do that. But anyways, if you just did that, I'm not violating other people's consent by wearing sandals. because I am not trying to objectify my feet. And even if I was, in the sense that like, hey, by the way, I've got a massive foot fetish and I want to show everybody my feet because I like the way that it makes people respond to me sexually, because it then emboldens my foot fetish. Again, I'm not violating other people's consent by walking around in sandals. Like that, to take it to that extreme, there's so many other cases you could say. Like if you're at a beach and there's a whole bunch of people wearing bikinis, is every single one of them trying to elicit a sexual response from everyone around them? I would propose, like, there are instances where people despise people looking at them sexually, but it happens anyway. It's just like a result of them having a human figure, and other people will find various people attractive. That doesn't mean that that's the reason they're dressed that way. That happens to be swimwear, sportswear, whatever they want to wear at that moment in time. Like, I think this sets a very dangerous precedent if we're going to say that just by simply being in the real world, if another person finds the way you look to be sexual, like there's people who sexualize nuns. Like, there's people who see nuns and that makes them sexually aroused. I don't think a single nun walking around on the street is violating anyone's consent by dressing like a nun. And if you use that example of nuns, maybe then it makes it a lot more blatant, because there's nothing that could be inherently sexual by that. Marxokiss, thank you for the Prime. Kezbox, thank you for the tier 1 as well. Appreciate it.
And wanting to feel
Talking about
like
feeling in a sexual way.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a sex act. I would absolutely call that a sex act.
Well,
I would stand
how
by
is it
that.
a sex act? What did I do that was a sex act?
Because you are doing something
And this, again, is why I think this is rhetoric is dangerous, because if we are conflating someone committing a sex act with someone dressing provocatively and someone else interpreting that sexually, well then, where does it start and where does it end? This seems to be like an old-timey conservative argument that's been proposed for a very long time. Like, you shouldn't show knees. Knees are too sexual. You shouldn't show shoulders. Shoulders. You shouldn't show cleavage. Cleavage is too sexual. Like, where does the bar start?
primarily to appeal to sexual desires or interests.
Well, I don't think that that's true. I don't think that if I think there's a lot of other examples that we can give of things that are very related to sex that and sexuality that happen in public that do not cause harm. And I don't think you can claim that I'm causing a harm by wanting to be desired by other people and dressing for that desire. And I think that's the only way that we can claim that this is like a bad.
Yes. And that, no, yes, I would say that if you are doing something primarily, again, we're focusing on primarily here, in order to appeal to other people's sexual desires without their consent, then I would say you are harming them by violating their consent.
So you think that
this is similar, by the way, to that Jordan Peterson argument, although he wasn't really making an argument. He's just asking questions like he always does. But I'm sure you've seen the interview where he's talking about, why do women wear lipstick in the workplace? They wear lipstick because it makes their lips look flushed and it wants to denote sexuality. They are trying to entice men in the office to make them lose their control and you know, give in to their base desires because of the lipstick. And my first thought when I saw that is like, we live in a society that is structured in such a way in which the value of women is usually a little bit, or sometimes very, correlated with their attractiveness. That's why it's constantly like, why don't you smile more, honey? Come on, you're frowning. You'd look so much prettier with a little bit more blush on your cheeks. You gotta be pretty, right? So if you want to succeed in the current paradigm of our modern workplace, yes, you will dress to be attractive. You could do it for a variety of reasons. You could do it completely, 100% non-sexually, which I would argue the vast majority of people who do dress up for the workplace do, including men. If a man is wearing a very nice cut, dress shirt, very nice tie, has his hair freshly done, he may look really hot to me. And I'm like, wow, that guy looks really, really hot. He looks very stylish in that suit. That doesn't mean that he dressed that way to make me aroused specifically. He can do it because people just enjoy in general, and I'm just going to put this out there, when they look good in public, and people enjoy feeling good in public, so that just helps to that effect. But also, it's because these are kind of standards that are required in the workplace in our current paradigm. None of it has to do with me trying to elicit a sexual response in this specific case, right?
Flattening sex, like forcing somebody, breaking somebody's consent. You think that me wearing a dress with a low cut top,
no one consented to my pink shirt
today.
today.
My boobs a little bit, and it would make other people feel a little bit good, but we wouldn't be getting off for anything.
You're being very particularly vague with when you say good. It's not just good generally. You're talking about good in a specifically sexual sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, no, I would absolutely hold by. I would absolutely hold by, especially like here, because right now you're talking about very abstract. Right now you're talking about an example that's very removed from what you said. What you said was that you're appealing to your partner's foot fetish.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, Sleep Easy. I want to.
Yeah,
I don't think. Well, I'm sorry. What's the difference there? I literally don't see it. I'm so sorry.
All right, hold on.
Okay.
So the issue, we already went over it. So you're fine. You're completely fine if you go out with your partner and your partner has a foot fetish, and you go out and know that, like, oh yeah, my partner has a foot fetish. And because they have a foot fetish, and primarily because they have a foot fetish, I'm going to dress barefoot and try to appeal to their foot fetish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and then on top of that, all right, so that's step one. Step two is you're fine with that happening in public.
Yeah.
And so step three, you're fine with that even happening around children.
Yeah, as long as there's not an intent for the children to be there, and as long as that you're not like including them, like, hey, come touch this, my partner's feet, or like, yeah, as long as you're not being like weird about it, yeah.
Why does that matter?
Because, well, now you've included them in the act.
Because, yeah, and that's the really fundamental important point. And I think it, like, just hit the nail on the head right here. It's if you are involving the children in any single way, then yes, that is obviously a huge problem. Not one that I think anybody on either side of this debate endorse in any way, shape, or form. But there are foot fetishists who just exist, and they are people who are going to also be outside. So again, if you are wearing sandals, is there going to be a certain section of the population that finds those sandals sexy or finds your bare feet sexy? Yes, there will be. I don't think I'm violating their consent, first off, by walking around in bare feet. I don't think I'm violating people around them's consent by walking around in bare feet, because there's no way ever of me knowing what each individual in society's particular desires or kinks are. Like, I can't arrive at a park and be like, okay, there's 25 people here, I've surveyed them, it turns out 10 of them are really into diaper fetishes, 3 of them are into chocolate, 1 or 2 of them like Pepto-Bismol. I do not have any of these things on me, so now I'm very clearly entering a safe area where no one will be aroused in any way, shape, or form by any of the objects that I'm carrying or purporting or like demonstrating, and now we've arrived at nirvana. We've done it.
Like, you're making them part of it.
What if they don't? What if you don't like? What if they don't like touch it? What if they're just like around it? Like they see the person getting off to the foot fetish or whatever.
Well, you keep saying getting off.
All right, hold on, wait.
Categorically reject
that.
I
want you to correct me. Are you fine then if they get off to their foot fetish in public? Are you fine with this person in this situation orgasming in public as a consequence of their foot fetish?
As things stand right now, maybe not. But I'd like to move towards a society that's a little bit freer about sex. I think.
And then this like hyper isolated hypothetical, because this is not that situation that happens very often in everyday life where people are just getting off spontaneously to things they see around them, right? But if that is the case, if you have this thing where I will have orgasms uncontrollably in public if I see one very specific thing, well then I would say that's more on the individuals who cannot like control their bodily functions and have just spontaneous orgasms than anything else. You should not then be turning to the people who walk around bare feet and be like, well, you can't do that because there are a couple people who walk around who just have spontaneous orgasms against their will. It's very violent, loud, and scary, and because of that, we'd like to ask you to cover up your shoes, please. We don't know if one of them is going to arrive at this time. They are numerous and many.
That having a more comprehensive view
so
on
you are
sexes. Well, no,
so you are
I actually gave a really nuanced answer there. Did you miss it?
So the answer that you gave is that like you don't think it's possible, but you would like to.
No, that's not the answer that I just gave.
Then I want you to give me the answer again, because my understanding of your answer was that, oh, well, probably not right now, but I'd like to move towards a society where maybe people have more open understandings of sex. The implication there being that you would like to be able to have people do that in the future.
I would like for sex to be destigmatized in the future to a pretty significant degree, with a broader understanding.
You're not answering the question.
I am answering your question.
I need you to answer this question, this specific question. Are you fine if your partner gets off to their foot fetish in public and you're the person who intentionally causes it? Are you fine with that happening? Yes or no?
I think the truth is that you'd have to be a little more nuanced about how the partner's getting off.
No, this is a yes or no question. Stop. You need to give a yes or no to this question.
So there's another really big problem I have, is the idea that everything has to be yes or no in debates, because yes, this is a very, very strange hypothetical that I do not think applies to the overwhelming majority of the population. Before this conversation, I didn't think there was a huge problem of people who achieve orgasm without being physically stimulated in any way. I know it's possible. I know people can do that, but I think they are a very select subset. In that case then, in the like extreme examples of the few people who simply by seeing feet like straight up cum their pants, then that would probably be on the person who cannot contain their own semen at the thought of feet. more than anything. Like that would be where I would place a violation of consent, because this person who knowingly goes out in public and orgasms every time they see feet, I mean, that's perhaps their issue to work out.
I didn't think I went on like Jesse Lee Peterson's show today. I actually like nuance and context in the answers that I give.
You can give all the nuance that you want after.
Gravitron, thank you. You walked into a hell of a discussion.
Followed my answer. If you want to ask questions, it's okay. I can explain anything that I say.
No, because all right. So you asked me. All right, I'm going to back up. You asked me why. To go back to the original thesis. So
yeah,
I said
that
this
might
is
be
an
something you
argument
want to go to a therapist.
that either was intentionally being made to justify pedophilia, or was negligently being made and ends up justifying pedophilia. So based on where the conversation is right now,
it's probably a very unique physical problem.
Because I don't think that you can give a clear answer to say that according to your worldview, yes, you would be fine with this.
Yes, I have nuanced answers to questions. I don't think that it's okay to do sex acts with children. And I don't think it's okay to include children in your sex acts.
Do you think that it's... All right, then hold on. Then do you think it's fine, because
Thank
you
you,
focus a lot on physical
Belmont.
touch, do you think it's fine if someone gets off to their foot fetish as a result of you doing it, and the children are around and even see it, but do not touch your partner at all?
It depends on how the orgasm occurs.
All right, so tell me why it matters. All right, tell me in which ways then you would be fine with that happening.
Because the overarching theme here seems to be the visual violation of consent. And I think time and time again, the examples that are being brought up, Doe is being very clear and concise, in which, like, we cannot enter this territory where you are visually violating people's consent simply through the act of doing something, which is typically, and this is starting out in things that are just really, really, normalized in society. Walking around barefoot, walking around in in sandals, something where you have exposed skin, anything like that. If we start at that, where it's like, well, now you violated people's consent by walking around barefoot, which again goes back to kind of like old Puritan ways of saying that, like, you cannot have exposed skin, you cannot show anything like that. I think it is a very dangerous, and here comes debate term, slippery slope.
Tell me in what kind of scenario you would be fine with your partner getting off around children, and you would say that's a fine thing.
Well, getting off in public with, the potential for children to be around. Like I said, making it intent about children is very, would make it, I think, morally, wrong. But
all right, and we talked about that before.
I know I'm building a full nuanced answer. I really wish you'd let me finish.
You just keep not responding to me based on what we already talked about. I feel like you keep trying to avoid answering the questions, so I keep trying to pull you back so we stay on topic.
Well, it sounds like you're trying to get a clip, because you don't actually want to discuss the nuance of this.
No, I am discussing nuance. I think that
you're really not. You literally just said, "Give me a yes or no answer." No, I don't like your nuanced answer. Give me a yes or no answer. Are you serious?
No, hold on. Nuance is not the same as refusing to give a yes or a no. You can give all the nuance that you want and also give a clear yes or a no.
Sometimes it's not just a yes or a no. Sometimes you have to make a nuanced case for sometimes yes and sometimes no. There are some people who have who have premature ejaculations. They'll even do it in public without touching or anything like that. They don't mean to. It's not but it still occurs. I think that people can orgasm in public in ways that aren't very harmful. But I think that there are ways that are harmful.
Okay, so I want to give you another scenario based on what you've already said, and I want you to tell me if it is or if it is not harmful. Okay?
I think we've walked through enough of these examples. I don't really know what else you're trying to get out of this.
No, I'm trying to test
I feel like
your
we really, really have. I mean, yeah, of course you're trying to test me. You've tested me 5 times now, and I've been pretty consistent.
No, you have not been consistent. I can't even get a baseline.
And this, again, Hagbard, Celine, thank you.
Precisely correct appraisal of Kant.
I'm intentionally not involving Kant or the philosophy aspect of this, because this is more of, and I think Doe was completely right to speak about this in terms of you are looking for a statement by me, right? You're looking to get a statement or a clip or something in which it justifies the accusation that I either enable or am a useful idiot to pedophiles through my rhetoric. That's why we've gone and cycled through so many of these hypothetical scenarios so far. That's also why I wanted to take this and slow it down and kind of break down each one of these arguments to explain why some of them can be dangerous and why I don't think they apply to the broader sense of consent, because consent is very, very important. It's something I talk about on the show a lot, and it's something that a lot of people have trouble wrapping their heads around. The very simple idea that, for example, if you're a streamer, and I'm sure this is much worse for femme-presenting streamers than it is for male, but if you're a streamer, odds are there are people who pleasure themselves while watching your streams, okay? It's just statistically going to happen. Doesn't matter if you happen to be an avatar streamer, just there are people who are probably going to pleasure themselves to your streams. Is that violating the streamer's consent? If you go into the chat and you say, by the way, I'm pleasuring myself to your stream, then yes, because you are involving them in that sex act. You want to elicit a response from them. You want them to be aware of what you're doing, all this kind of stuff, right? The same thing applies to if you masturbate to your imagination, and your imagination is masturbating about a friend of yours or a coworker or something. Have you violated their consent at that time because you are masturbating to them? Like, I could certainly say that it's weird to do that about your friends. It's a strange thing to do, but it's the moment you tell them that you were doing that you have then involved them in the act itself. Up until that point, no, I would not say that's violating their consent.
Fine level of what your views are.
Really?
You've not given a clear answer to any, like, almost any of the questions I've asked. So I just want to I'm trying to ask questions to figure out what your values are. So I'm going to give you another example based on what you have already said to see what your response is, so I can help figure out what your values are.
Okay, that sounds really cool. We haven't done this yet. I'd really like to.
I think.
Okay, so let's say that you have.
I think the most important thing to remember, here's the baseline rule: consent involves 2 or more individuals. Consent is not a one-person thing. And that is the problem, and that has been the problem with arguments around consent for a long time, sometimes in the sense of like whether or not people are, quote, asking for it and things like that. Consent has to be between 2 or more people. So the other individual has to be either aware of it and has to be either acknowledging or refusing to engage in the consent.
The person from the example that you tweeted about, your partner, foot fetish, you go out with your partner, you know that your partner has a foot fetish, you intentionally and primarily do not wear shoes in order to appeal to your partner's foot fetish. There are children around. You do not care that there are children around, but there are children around. Your partner, who also does not necessarily care that there are children around, ends up getting off orgasming as a consequence of you specifically appealing to their foot fetish. Do you think that there is any harm incurred to the children, even though they were not, that was not necessarily intentionally a part of the situation? Yes or no?
From the way you've described that, no, I don't believe a harm was done to those children.
Okay, so now we're at the issue. Thank you. So this is why I would reject your framing of this, because I would say that doing that violates categorically the consent of the children and therefore causes them harm. That is my issue with what that's my issue with what you're proposing.
What consent did you violate?
Because you engage in sexual acts around children by engaging in incredibly risky behavior without getting their consent.
Children can't consent.
That's not, you haven't described a harm.
Yes, I have. All right, let me give you an example of this.
Well, no, actually, let me give you an example of this. I went through some pretty extreme child sexual assault. I was sold to other people for sex. There were people who looked at me and desired me sexually. And there's a very big difference from the guy who was looking at me and desiring me sexually and the guy who just paid to fuck my bleeding holes and then sticking his fingers down my throat so I'll puke for him so he can make me eat it before he shoots his load into my ass, okay? There's a very big difference between the desire of the first person and the actual act of the second person. These are fundamentally different. My consent wasn't broken when someone was looking at me, with desire. That's not where that came from.
All right. I am sorry that happened to you. That is awful. That does not have to do with this conversation.
It absolutely does, because your definition of sex.
Okay, so some of, I would say easily the most horrifying graphic details that have been told from a sexual assault survivor that I've ever seen in my history of watching Twitch and Twitch streams. And obviously my heart broke the first time I saw this, and nothing but complete sympathy and empathy for the things that Doe has suffered through. And as gruesome and graphic as that may be, it is pertinent to the conversation they're having at hand. And this was the moment for me that broke me, because ultimately the problem with these kind of debates where it is about being right, it is about just proving that you are right above all else and making sure that everyone else who's watching understands that you are being, that your stance is correct, and that the other person has been wrong this entire time, that supersedes, like, in this moment, basic human empathy. I don't know for the life of me how you can listen to something like that, something that horrifying and that horrific, and then continue along the course of, well, I don't think that either relates, or you're wrong about the way you're asserting it, or I'm sorry, but that is just falsifiable. Like, anything other than that is just unbelievably horrifyingly tragic. If you don't feel comfortable with that conversation, you can easily say, I do not feel comfortable discussing this any further. I do not want to talk about this anymore. It has reached a level of severity that I personally don't feel comfortable with. So I would like to either end this conversation or move on to something else. But that's not the way it goes. It continues along this line where it has to be, here's why what you just stated does not properly fit into the definitions that we are defining itself. And like, there is so much wrong right now with the way that we are interacting with each other, especially online, and extra especially when it comes to large personalities and figures, and the ways in which we are dealing with each other. There have been good faith debates. I have seen them. It's not a myth. There have been conversations that two people can be diametrically opposed to on an issue, in which they're going to come together and at least be like, well, I may disagree with you on this fundamental fact, but I'm glad we can have this conversation. Hopefully we've both learned something through the process. But this is not that. This is, once again, one of these competitions where someone has to be right and someone has to be wrong. And even the lived experiences, as like horrifying as they may be, it's apparently not admissible in this case, because it doesn't fit my definition of what I've been trying to describe.
Acts includes the man who was looking at me, wanting to buy me, but not doing it.
I think that we're about to be TOS, but let me be clear, all right? Everything that you just said does not have to do with the scenario that we just talked about.
It has to do with your definition of sex acts.
So
Your definition of sex acts fundamentally fails. It includes people who wear crop tops. It includes people who wear high heels to make their ass look good. And it includes the man who looked at me, desiring me.
Did he get off to you?
No, not that one.
Was he trying to?
No, he was deciding which one of us he wanted to fuck.
Then I would say that that's not a sex act.
Why? He desired me sexually.
If he was not doing something,
he was desiring me. Isn't that the problem here?
Wait, so hold on. So actually, wait. So do you want this person? I'm trying to understand the issue here, and I can tell that this is a very, like, we don't have to talk about this. This is a sensitive subject.
Yeah, it's why I was really, really upset when you called me a pedophile.
I didn't call you a pedophile.
Yeah, I know. You're going to keep maintaining that. We haven't gotten to that part of the discussion yet.
No, we actually have. Do you have any other examples of me calling you a pedophile?
Now, this is another thing that I wanted to stress, and is incredibly important around this. That was what provoked this entire thing. And at the time, because I know right now, and I am going to, maintain consistency on this, I do not think that people involved in this discussion should be harassed. I do not think that people involved in this discussion should get threats, should get all that kind of stuff. And if that is happening right now towards RGR as a result of what I consider to be very egregious behavior here, that is not the right course of action. That is what had been happening, however, to Doe for months. To Doe for months on silence, as it had to close its social media account, it had to shut down Twitter. Even more horrifying things happened after the fact because of the repeated accusations of either being a pedophile or enabling pedophiles. Again, to a CSA survivor who has experienced amongst the most horrifying things that I've ever heard in my entire life. So it does matter when you do have a massive platform and you make accusations of this nature, and then all of a sudden everyone is going to come out, and now there's been the reversal backlash. Well, why isn't everyone condemning what is occurring to RGR? This was the inciting incident that started all of this.
When you say that someone is intentionally or negligently justifying pedophilia, what you're saying is they have made an argument that they think that sex acts with children are okay, whether they know it or not. Your audience calls me a pedophile without your pretty wording around it, because they heard your message. They heard the message that you were sending out. They heard it. They heard it loud and clear. They heard it every time you called all of those people. Yeah, no, they totally did. And they get it. They absolutely, absolutely understood. Your audience picked it up. Did you not understand? Do you want to go see, you want me to go look through my replies and find how many people call me a pedophile without all your fun words around it? There are people calling it a pedo in your chat. Yes, people in your chat are literally saying that.
We're going to get back to having a productive conversation. Right?
Yeah, I think we can't get back to having a productive conversation. I think the conversation is about whether or not that guy who was looking at me, ready to buy my holes. I want to know whether or not that was a sex act. Was it a sex act when he wanted to buy my holes?
To what pedophiles want, or you negligently did. That is what I argued.
Yes.
And that is what I maintain.
Yes, you argued that I have a belief that justifies having sex with children. I never claimed that. I have only said that it is okay to do things in public that deal with sexual desire.
You understand what negligence means?
Yes, unintentionally.
Okay.
So, but what you're saying is I have a belief whether or not I know it, that I did it whether or not I meant to. You're saying that I said it's okay to have sex with children whether or not I know it. That's what you said. You said that about me. You know that, right? Those are the words that you said about me.
Words in my mouth.
I didn't put words intentionally or negligently. Those are what those words mean.
No. Stop.
Anyone can see that that's what those words mean.
No.
And your audience heard the message. Your audience heard the message because they call me it.
All right? Yelling does not make you more right. All right?
You've been yelling multiple times in this conversation. It was only when I brought up an intense, traumatic event of mine that I am now.
Where you say something and you are not aware of its implications at the time that you do it.
Yeah. So you think
you still do cause harm.
You think that
I'm going to unmute you.
Oh my God, you muted me.
Stop saying.
Oh my God,
this is calling you a pedophile.
Oh my God.
Because it is not.
That's so embarrassing. I can't believe you muted me. That's incredibly embarrassing. Oh my God.
No, hold on. You were yelling and you were trying to put words in my mouth. All right? So I am justified to be
this is where it honestly it got real, because a lot of the time when you're doing shit on Twitter, you don't think about the real world consequences of your actions. And I'm throwing myself in that group as well, right? Sometimes you'll put a statement out there, and then what happens? The backlash. This happened in real time to Doe for months. It was getting harassed. It was being called a pedophile, all that kind of stuff. And now it is finally telling the story out loud to the person that made those accusations in the first part. And now things have become all too real, in my opinion. Like, this was one of those moments where it was like everything suddenly boils to the surface. And I think I have no idea how Doe maintained so much composure through this, especially up until this point.
Able to do that. Keep saying that I said a thing when I didn't. We looked at the clip. We looked at the clip.
Clean up that I intentionally or negligently justified pedophilia. That means that either I meant to say that it's okay to have sex with children, or I unintentionally hold the belief or made an argument that justifies, made an argument that would allude to the belief that having sex with children is okay.
Now, hold on. Stop. All right? It's not just... There is a possibility, because I can't read your mind. I don't know what's in your head. But the total scope of possibilities means that either you didn't know what you were saying when you said this, or, conversely, that you didn't know.
Yeah.
And I stand by that, because if you...
So you're saying that I made an argument without knowing it that says it's okay to have sex with children.
You're fine. No, hold on. You are fine with people, you admitted, you're fine with people being able to get off in front of children, at least in some scenarios. You're fine with that.
Get off in public with the understanding that children might be there. But that actually wasn't why you called me a pedophile. The reason you called me a pedophile... I didn't call you a pedophile.
You just admitted...
I just admitted that
there are scenarios where you're fine with people getting off around...
See, again, it's like the gotcha is the most important part here. And that's just... By this point, I was like... I just utterly floored. I was like... Because, A, the accusations that are coming out, and it's happening in real time... If you don't want to address them, then perhaps you shouldn't have even had this like conversation in the first place. And things just got too real because you actually heard the real world examples of like a CSI survivor, CSA survivor telling their firsthand account. And now also imploring that, by the way, this is why it was so dangerous. I want you to realize this is why it was so dangerous and fucked up for those accusations to even be levied at me in the first place, because now this is what I have to deal with. Now, and people still are looking at this, and even then, you are still looking for this gotcha that I'm apparently either enabling pedophilia or I'm endorsing pedophilic beliefs or something of that nature, because we've done all these hypotheticals, thought experiments, and each and every one of them I've been trying to demonstrate nuance to you to understand why the definition of consent is so important. But even now it's still coming down to, because this example you are giving, this real world example, shows that you are okay with people getting off in front of kids.
Found children in public. I do not think it is a stretch to say that you either negligently or intentionally made arguments that would also be made by pedophiles.
No, none of my arguments were made by pedophiles.
You are not listening to me.
I am listening to you. I heard every word you said. Do you want me to repeat it back to you word for word?
Yes, please repeat back to me exactly what I said.
Right, maybe I can't do word for word, but she did say that your belief in its negligence. Oh, I read something and I lost it. Never mind. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So you agreed, just now, you've agreed multiple times actually, that you are fine with certain situations where someone engages in a sexual act, gets off publicly around children.
You keep saying
stop. You agree that there are situations where you are fine with that happening.
I'm fine with people getting off in public sometimes. Yes.
Even if it is around children.
As long as they're not including the children in it. Yes.
Okay. So I don't think that my comment was out of line at all.
Well, you're implying that I think it's okay to involve children in sex acts.
No, I didn't.
Oh, sounds like pedo apologia to me. Look at your chat. Look at them all doing it. They hear your message.
Well, right now what you're saying is incredibly yikesy.
Yikesy.
Because you are justifying being able to get off in front of children.
I'm justifying getting off in public. I'm not justifying getting off with the children as the intent.
Sometimes, and you are fine with scenarios where people get off in public and also in front of children.
Hey, Wilco.
Yes.
It's again, like, it's a conversation where in a medium and a platform where there is no nuance. Nuance is just absolutely dead. Everything has to be broken down to a yes or no. You either a pedophile enabler or you're not a pedophile enabler. One of the two. And then here's a whole bunch of hypotheticals, and then I'm going to test you with these hypotheticals because I want to find the one hypothetical that demonstrates and proves my assertion was correct, that you are in fact either enabling pedophilia or you are being like a useful idiot to pedophiles or something to that effect. Like, this could have been a moment where you stop with this has to be a win. You stop with this has to be a debate, and then all of a sudden we can recognize each other's humanity for a couple seconds, especially someone who has been through this experience firsthand. And yes, their real world example is very important in this case, especially when framing it around whether or not someone is in fact getting consent and if that is involved.
As long as they're not including the children in the sex act.
Like,
do we want to go? All right.
Like, did anyone see Big Joel's post on this? Because I remember when the Kink and Pride thing was coming out, Big Joel made a little video post that got a whole bunch of hate. But it was basically like, do you have any idea how hyper sexualized society is in every single corner? You cannot escape it. If you walk down the street, you will see posters of gorgeous women scantily clad, and they will be dripping sauce on their chests from a burger commercial. You will look to your left and there will be a bunch of soccer players, beautiful chiseled men sweating, playing against each other, rugby players tackling each other. Sexuality is used to sell everything from video games to food in every aspect of society, and heterosexual, especially sexuality, is hyper pushed on this 24/7 every single day. Turn on TV, car commercials, beer commercials, you name it, everything is sold through sexuality. Children are exposed to hypersexuality all the time in society, and no one says a fucking thing. No one says a word about any of this. Because, like, heteronormative sex is just so normalized in society. Like, the idea, like, you even watch children's cartoons. How many children's cartoons have heteronormative couples kissing? Like, I'm not saying they do anything more, but they kiss. The second it's a gay couple doing that in a cartoon, oh, society has ended. What is this? Why are they trying to indoctrinate my kids into the gay? This is gay ideology gone wild. And this was, like, the thing at the forefront when I was thinking about, like, oh, the Kink at Pride. The Kink at Pride. within minutes, I pulled up images of wrestlers from wrestling, who are dressed in the most kink at pride I can imagine gear. Full on, like, gimp suit attire, leather straps, thongs, spikes coming out of the sides of the head. That is an all ages event. You can go to wrestling with your kids kind of things. And no one looks upon that and thinks, well, they're definitely trying to indoctrinate our children into S&M and Dawn right now. It's just like, there's a bunch of wild, wacky wrestlers being wild and wacky, and they're tackling each other, and they're getting all sweaty, and they're slipping on each other and stuff like that. But you don't look at that and immediately think, sex. Oh, sex. This is going to indoctrinate our children. Except when it involves, like, the queer community. As soon as it involves the queer community, because people are just not as normalized to sexuality in the queer community, even if it isn't supposed to be sexual in nature, even if it is something that someone is just wearing because they like the look or the fit of it, suddenly, society is ending. Suddenly it's a massive problem.
Talked about the concept of risk earlier, or risky behavior. Can we go back to that? Because this would be when we're talking about...
No, because we still haven't gotten past your failure of a definition. You can't fundamentally tell me
I think that
my consent was broken when that man desired me. You can't tell me that. It does not cover that. That's not a sex act. The man looked at me. He wanted to purchase me.
Are you bringing up your personal experience?
Yes, because my personal experience is important here, because you clearly don't have the actual...
No, I'm gonna stop you. I know what you're doing.
Oh my God, you muted me again.
You're bringing up your own personal experience as a drama victim to try and paint me in a bad light. I know what you are doing. All right?
Yeah.
Do not lie.
Like, this isn't a debate tactic. That's this part, like, it's still so frustrating to watch, because in the pursuit of being right, I feel like we're losing our humanity. Just like it is. This is a debate tactic, or this is a strategy, or this is something else. You are trying to poison the well with your own personal story involving this very thing that we're talking about.
To me or the chat, I know what you're doing. I know you're poisoning the well.
Poisoning the well?
This does not matter
Oh
when we're talking about the specific scenarios of the subject here. What you tweeted, which is what we are talking about. All right? So stop poisoning the well and keep on the discussion that you agreed to have. All right?
Am I unmuted? Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
I think it's really embarrassing that you keep muting. I haven't muted you once. I think that's really embarrassing. But more than that, yeah, because it is embarrassing. Because you have to like.
Embarrassing does not make it embarrassing. I hate to be the one to tell you.
Oh my God, you're right. Oh my God, I'm not the arbiter of ultimate embarrassment. Oh my God, I've just now come to this realization. My life's a lie. I'm going to be in shambles now.
So you asked earlier, what's the harm of getting off around children? And I will justify that to you right now.
No, I want you to justify your belief of desire being a sex act. I've given a very clear example in where desire wasn't a sex act. Sexual desire wasn't itself a sex act. I'd like you to actually defend your claim, because you haven't yet.
Because they have no. Hold on. Because we're talking about if you're doing something primarily appealing to sexual desires or interests.
Yes, the man who was looking at me to purchase me was in fact looking at me with pure intent sexual desire.
Sipakro, to be completely fair, I don't believe she was saying drama victim. I think she said trauma victim.
That is not primary. Hold on, no.
You don't think that's primarily about sexual desire? The guy who was about to buy my holes?
All right, so hold on. So you're literally engaging. You're trying to poison. I know what you're doing.
This isn't poisoning the well.
I'm going to respond to you. All right? I'm going to respond to you. But I know everyone can tell exactly what you're trying to do. Okay? So I'm going to respond to you.
Am I unmuted?
I'm unmuting you right now.
Oh, it's Riley's stream. It's fine for her to mute the pedo apologist. I still
I'm muting you when you're in. I'm muting. No, you know when I'm muting you. Don't lie.
I don't know. It doesn't show me.
All right.
How am I supposed to know? Wait, you just said that and you're going to just move on? You're going to say that and you're just going to move on?
No. I'm responding to what you said.
Yeah, you said something about the lie, and then you're not going to acknowledge that it wasn't true, and now you're just trying to move on. I can't see when you mute me.
I would respond to you. You're asking me to respond to an incredibly inflammatory hypothetical.
I'm asking you to respond to my personal experience, because it is the ultimate counter to your poor definition.
No, it's not the ultimate counter. I'm about to explain why. Also, can you please give a trigger warning? People in my chat are asking that you give a trigger warning before you talk about...
No, I don't think so. You didn't give me a trigger warning when you called me a pedophile.
I didn't call you a pedophile.
You did.
No, I didn't. We already went over it.
Yeah, I was right.
No.
Yeah.
No. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I reject that. Do you have any other... All right, hold on. You said multiple times. Is there any other time aside from this? Because here, I would reject that I ever called you a pedophile. I would reject that 100%. You said I called you a pedophile multiple times. Are there any other times where that possibly happened?
You deleted all your tweets. Don't you remember?
I never tweeted calling you a pedophile.
Okay.
So you're just calling me a liar then?
No, I said at the very beginning of this debate that neither of us can prove that claim because you hid all the evidence. So it's
I
impossible
didn't hide
for
all the
anyone to
evidence. I
claim
deleted it because
anything.
you and your community were harassing me.
Sure. We were talking about things that you said publicly as a public figure. That is.
I never. Do you have any screen? Or do you have any screen cap? If I deleted a tweet, then I could have had it there.
Your girlfriend tweeted, and it seemed to be in line with things that you believed. Because
You
it
have
made the
any
exact same
screenshot
argument as
evidence?
you about how desiring a foot fetish, desiring feet with a foot fetish is itself a sex act, and then she cited some like legal stuff, and then she got put on bad legal takes. Oh man, that was so funny.
Evidence. You don't have any actual evidence of me
Right.
calling you a pedophile once.
You did it multiple times, but
No, I didn't. I didn't. You never have
doesn't matter.
provided any
It's okay.
evidence to
Hey, I
substantiate
can't. Like I already said, I can't prove that you tweeted those things. It's fine. We can move on from it. I know
No,
that
no,
you did
you
it.
lied
You
then.
deleted your
You
tweet.
specifically lied then. Why are you trying to prove something that you don't even know is true?
Well, I know that it happened because it happened to me. And beyond
Wait,
that,
so
I don't need
you're-
those tweets here because your video.
All right, wait.
enough.
How is that any difference? Hold on, we need to go through that claim because there's a massive issue there. So you're saying that you're saying it's true that I called you a pedophile multiple times because it happened to you. That is your evidence, right?
No, I'm telling you that I can't provide evidence. I said that at the
No,
very
you're
beginning
saying-
of the discussion, and I can't do it
You are
now.
saying that it's true that I called you a pedophile multiple times because it happened to you and you know it to be true.
Well,
That's what you're
it
providing
happened
as
to me. No, I know it happened. It happened to me.
I know it
can't
didn't
prove
happen.
it. There's no
I know it
evidence
didn't
because
happen.
you deleted all of it.
I
and
know
that's
it
okay.
didn't happen.
Okay, and like I said, neither of us can move forward on that. I've said that more than once. It's fine.
So you did lie about me.
I didn't lie. The same with
Do you have any proof that you were telling the truth?
Yes, the video is the proof.
No, it's not.
If you say that someone is intentionally or unintentionally defending pedophilia, what you're saying is that they
I'm
either
literally saying you
knowingly-
may have not
you
intentionally
said-
defended pedophilia.
I know that it's not all intentional. Every time I've said this, I've done both parts of it. You are either saying that I know that I am actively aware that I am presenting something
If I
that
say-
says, can I
if
please
I
finish
say-
my sentence?
No, you're not responding to me. If
I am responding to you. I'm saying intentionally or unintentionally, one of them is that I knowingly am justifying having sex with children, and the other one is saying that I don't know that I'm saying that it's okay to have sex with children. Neither of those are what I've done. I think it is
what
okay
about
to,
that second one there?
yes,
Where you
think that I am
make that meaning.
you think that I unknowingly support sex with children, even though I more than once said that sex with children is wrong.
I think that you said that in this clip. I think that is the plain reading of this. I was specifically talking about what you said here.
You were talking about the foot fetish example.
Yes, where you ended up conceding that you are fine with scenarios where someone gets off sexually to a foot fetish.
I never said
around
gets
children.
off. I've said gets off in this conversation, but I didn't say it in that initial one. But even if I did say get
Wait,
off,
hold on. You are saying that according to this clip and the beliefs that you elicited in this clip, that you are fine with scenarios where people get off to their foot fetish sexually in public around children.
in the clip, I said that it was okay to present your desires in public, to do things in public that elicit sexual desire. In this conversation, I've maintained that I don't think it breaks consent to orgasm in public as long as you don't involve the children around.
Okay, and now, because we've gotten to this point several times, we keep trying to pivot away, I want to explain why that is wrong. All right, we keep pivoting away. I want to explain why doing a sex act around children, even if you do not involve them, is still harmful.
When a kid walks in on their parents, did their parents involve them in a sex act?
So, no. Why
not?
No.
These kids saw them having sex.
Because you're not. No, because you're engaged. Because they were acting in private. They took reasonable steps to act in private. And so I'm going to. All right. I'm going to mute you for a second. I'm going to explain why it is bad to do.
I've deafened myself and muted my microphone on her end because if she's going to keep muting me, I have no obligation to continue to sit there and listen to her. I think that's more than fair. She's muted me multiple times. This is the only time I've done it. I can't hear anything she's saying. I think, so.
You don't need to platform the
I think
opposing
this is more than fair.
views if
I'll
you're
see how
being
long it takes her
consistently
to
muted.
notice or care.
And yeah,
What
like
are you guys doing? I haven't read any of the chat.
unbelievable support for Doe
are you guys
maintaining
doing?
composure during this entire thing. I don't know how it does that.
You guys think I'm doing okay? I've been trying my hardest. My hands are like sweaty. I got anxiety talking about my trauma. My adrenaline started pumping. I shouldn't have gotten as loud as I did. Oh,
But well, you didn't listen to anything I said, but I just
oh,
explained
sorry,
why.
you muted me. I only thought it was fair.
Because you were not actually engaging with what I was saying. All right, I'm trying to
feel like I've
explain.
engaged
You
with
said
everything you've said.
no, stop. You didn't. You
Okay.
said that there is no harm from doing sex acts around children, and I have tried repeatedly, multiple times, to explain why it is harmful. I just explained that to my chat. And I tried to explain it to you, and you specifically avoided listening to me, which suggests to me that you are not actually engaging with me in good faith.
You
If
muted
are
me multiple
avoiding
times. That
engaging
was the
with the
first time I
argument
muted you. I just find it really unfair that you keep muting me. Maybe unfair sounds a little whiny, but like I feel like I've treated you with pretty good faith here. I've answered every question directly. I've tried my hardest to be honest and good faith, and even answer questions that I know you are trying to make sound as intentionally bad as possible. I know that. Yeah, no, you are, and then you mute me when absolutely. I think that's absolutely what you've done. You keep saying I'm poisoning the well by talking about my own personal, literal experience that actually has to do with actual pedophilia. That's apparently not actually like important to you as someone who's like really worried about CSA victims, right? Oh man.
All right, no, clearly when you say that, or you are poisoning the well.
It's not poisoning the well.
I agree that what happened to you was horrible. I am sorry that it happened. You know you are poisoning the well.
It's not poisoning the well. It's talking about my personal experiences. Poisoning the well would be like, Riley is such a dumb Christian, she'll never be able to understand what I'm saying. Like, no, like I'm not poisoning the well.
True. And hey, this part is really crucial because something that is so important in all of this is that false accusations of pedophilia and false, even falsely asserting that someone is enabling or helping out pedophiles, and in the pursuit of what? Obviously, you would be making those accusations because you want to prevent further pedophilia from occurring. There's a very big problem with false accusations of pedophilia across the board. And I've talked at the start of this historically about why it's been utilized and weaponized against members of the queer community before, for example. But that's the reason she's bringing up a real world example here, is because I have experience with this. I have been sold to pedophiles. That was part of my lived experience. And I can tell you, based on this, here is where the definition is getting murky. And it's directly related to the conversation we're having too.
Talking about an experience because I don't feel like you're adequately able to engage with the actual experiences of people who have gone through really horrible things.
The problems. I'm telling you exactly the problems. And I also was going to explain, all right, so hold on. So if we want to go back to exactly the reason why that person in the scenario was not engaging in a sex act, I would say that it was not because they were primarily trying to pursue a sexual desire or interest at that time. That would be
look at that person in your chat. The answer is yes, that those a pedo if it thinks it's okay to orgasm in the presence of children. You know that was actually like the norm, that like people would fucking like
hold on, don't try to impugn. No,
it actually used to be the norm. I'm not impugning it. I'm just telling you, I just want you to hear like what your audience says. I'm reading it all. I know what your audience says. I just wish you would read what your audience says.
Actually engage with what I'm saying because I'm responding to you. I would say that the person in your scenario, for as inflammatory as you make it out to be, I would say that the distinguishing factor there is that they were not primarily
I was sold to other people and you're calling me inflammatory?
Yes. I mean, right now, hold on. You keep saying that. You keep repeating this. You keep repeating the fact that you are.
Joe literally said it's fine to jerk in front of kids. That's not what I said. Hey, Chatter, Todsworth. That's not what I said. Sorry, I just wanted to let that know. That's not what I said. Yeah.
Hold on. So to be clear, the example that you gave, I would distinguish and say that the reason why that does not apply is because that person, we can reasonably surmise, was not primarily engaging in a sexual act at that time.
They were looking at me to buy me.
And all right, and I know that you are trying to just be as overly inflammatory as possible.
This is not inflammatory.
And I would say that in that situation, the thing they were primarily focusing on was the buying. That's what my answer would be. And I know that you're just going to respond with, "Oh my God, Riley, you're so terrible."
I left. The guy who wanted to buy my holes, the main thing he was thinking about was the buying? I left. To be really clear, I left. I don't want anyone to be confused. I ended that conversation. Okay, hold on. I need a quick second.
So let me say this, because obviously that's just like horrifying to witness, and it was the first time I saw it yesterday. First off, and this applies to every single person, if your interactions online, whether it be being a streamer, being someone who tweets, someone who posts on Facebook, in any regard, if it directly affects your mental health, or it puts you into a dangerous position where it'll either inflame anxiety or create suicidal ideation, please stop interacting on the internet. Either as a public figure, or even as someone who's got a smaller following, it doesn't matter. But do not do that at the cost of your own mental health. Because now I know there is accusations going forward that people are now bullying RGR or now going after RGR intentionally because of this entire thing. That is not what you should be doing in this case. No one should be going after RGR. No one should be trying to send RGR any kinds of horrible things or anything like that. The takeaway from all this, and the thing that I think is most important, is that you do need to recognize other people's humanity. I'm not saying that as a virtue signal. I'm not saying this as a kumbaya kind of hippie moment or something like that. But that is the problem with the way that our online interactions, like this seems like such an extreme example of it, where, yeah, we're all guilty of this. You go online and you just talk past each other. You want to win. You want to have an argument. You want to do all that. And even if it gets to the point, as it did here, where someone is telling you a horrifying experience that they lived through that is directly related to the topic at hand, that still gets lost in the pursuit of getting a win or a clip or a dig or anything like that. And that's not like the way we should be conducting ourselves. And I don't just mean this as like, here's how everyone should conduct themselves, Principal Lance here to tell you how to be better on the internet. But we've all been complaining for a while about how this kind of shit is devolving. We've all been complaining about how vitriol online is just getting worse and worse. Who do we point the finger at? Is it our online interactions? Is it the algorithms? Probably that play a very large part in making it the more inflammatory the content, the more clicks, the more views, the more likes, the more shares. So yeah, we keep doing that. And in the process of, you do lose your humanity as a person. And that is something I think that we could start trying to work towards and fighting towards, because I fundamentally disagree with almost every single take that Riley was proposing there, especially in the pursuit of just being right. I think the whole thing was I mean, optically it was a disaster. And just like, I think objectively, you can't walk away from this conversation being like, well, I guess I do kind of want to defend the position that if people think about other people while masturbating, it's violating their consent, even if the other party doesn't know about it, things like that, right? So my like, you know, please don't walk away with this in any way thinking that now is a chance to, now everyone needs to fight back now, because this is all over the internet right now. It's either half people are talking about this or people are talking about Rittenhouse. Instead of consistently going on the attack and trying to just destroy every single person involved in this, what about showing and sending support to Doe? What about supporting it? What about, you know, thanking it for having the courage and bravery to talk about this? That is the only kind of mass, you know, internet action that you should be involving yourself in. Because I can't even wrap my head around what it must have been like to try and talk about this, to let alone talk about this in a debate format. Let alone talk about this in front of thousands of strangers and then tens of thousands of strangers afterwards, over and over and over. You know, like it's bravery that like I would only hope to have a fraction of one day, to say the very least. I'm sure a handful of you found out yesterday or found out today that Demon Mama has been banned off Twitch for 30 days. As of right now, I'm not entirely sure what the cause of the ban was in terms of the exact reasoning. It's been, I think she's still waiting for an email to get back from them before she obviously is going to do a full appeal. And the reasons so far are targeted harassment. And they stipulated a handful of reasons. I've heard a lot of things rumored online. Was it because Demon Mama said an F-slur at one point during the stream? It was a self-referential F-slur, and I'm not entirely sure if that is TOS. I don't know if members of the queer community are allowed to use the F-slur in the same way members of the black community are allowed to use a soft N-word without it being TOS. I'm not entirely sure what the rules are in that, so I can't speak to that. But it's going to severely, obviously, affect Demon Mama. Demon Mama can still stream on YouTube, and I'm not sure if Demon Mama is going to be allowed to. I don't know if this is going to affect her affiliate status on Twitch. Demon Mama, I'm sure, as you know, is the person who is the earner in her household, and I believe she supports 3 people on the income that she brings in and generates. So this is a situation in which someone is effectively not only being silenced, but having their income affected by what is going on. And a lot of people have been asking, what is going on? Because yesterday when I was trying to talk about this and trying to give like a cool, calm, and collected analysis of the points being raised in the conversation between Doe and RGR, I had numerous people at the time be like, I don't know what is going on. I don't know any of these people. What exactly is the history of all this? I mean, if I was to go into the history of this kind of dates back, and I know it's going to sound strange. I mean, the conversations about kink at Pride have been a part of just the discourse during Pride Month for as long as I've been going to Pride. And this particular discourse, which started at this year's Pride, was a little more intense, and it actually originates in 2020. If everyone doesn't know this already, there was an operation on 4chan called Operation Pridefall, where alt-right homophobes detailed psyops that they wanted to do to convince brands to cut ties with the LGBTQ community. How they plan to do this is, again, to raise moral panic over Pride, and specifically the indoctrination of children. Now, the indoctrination of children is something that everyone obviously is, I would say, against. There's nothing worse in society than someone who's going to prey on children for whatever reason. So it's something that galvanizes us all. It's something that makes us all furious. It makes us all angry. And it is weaponized frequently against members of the gay, queer, LGBTQ plus community, and has been for as long as they've been persecuted. So this panic and outrage on 4chan was a very methodical concept. What they were going to do is they posted a whole bunch of photos, and these pictures were pictures of the most prominent one that you probably remember from this year is the one of two men in dog gimp suit outfits talking to a young girl. She appears to be 5 or 6, and then they were suggesting what people should do with these kind of photos. Post them and say, how can you support this at Pride? How can you support this gay agenda? How can you support this, what they're doing to children? Post all these photos. They had tons of different pictures of this nature, and getting everyone to post them and get really mad online. And that eventually seeped into, even though this came out in 2020, into this year's discourse. Lauren Southern, I'm sure some of you know, posted that picture, and then Destiny quote tweeted it by saying, if this is something that you think is acceptable, then you've lost the plot. I'm paraphrasing there. And then things really blew out of proportion once it reached Shoe on Head, because Shoe on Head made a whole bunch of posts that were incredibly yikesy. I called her out at the time. I did a whole video on it, and it started up this whole massive kink at Pride thing, and then it became part of the Twitch discourse, which means that it's going to be part of panels, it's going to be part of debates, it's going to be part of conversations, it's going to be a part of everything, because now everyone is talking about what is acceptable to wear at Pride. Is kink at Pride something that we should be deeply concerned about? And that's, of course, where the initial conflict began between Doe and Riley Grace Roshong in relation to this. But they have previous to this is not something I'm going to be talking about. When it comes to Shoe on Head, to her credit, after I made an entire video, calling out her takes, saying that this stuff on this moral panic about the drag queen children's storytime hour is like massively yikesy. It's gross. It's what conservatives do. This is not a demonstrable place where children have been, molested or sexually abused. Anyways, to her credit, she ended up taking those tweets down, but the discourse was out there and it was in full swing. At the time, and I still genuinely believe this, my biggest issue, and the reason this was making me very, very mad, was because I feel that in society, that there is hypersexualization everywhere. Everywhere you look. If you turn on a television, if you walk down the street and look at a billboard, if you open a magazine, if you still read magazines or whatever that is, you will see incredibly heteronormative, hypersexual imagery, and it is very normalized. We sell burgers by having beautiful women with giant boobas eating the burger as the sauce drips onto their cleavage, and you sit there wondering, am I horny or am I hungry? I can't tell right now. Maybe both. I don't know what's happening to me. And I was also bringing up the example that when there is hypersexualization in modern society, it's been normalized as long as it is, again, heteronormative. We're talking about cis man, cis woman, and that is what people have kind of grown to be acceptable. But the idea of people wearing things like gimp suits in public, something that is usually associated with, the LGBTQ plus community, but it does not have to be, but is often associated with that, is then seen as being something that could be damaging towards children. And was weaponized because of that, because people can immediately see that, and it does give you that feeling like, whoa, how am I ever going to have to explain this to my kids? If you didn't know, this whole thing turned out to be a massive lie. The pictures that were circulating around of the two men in dog gimp suits was not real. The picture was very real. It took place. It was not from a Pride event. Pride events, I was also trying to reiterate at the time, do have dress codes. Public Pride events, where there is a Pride parade, where you will see beautiful, gorgeous men in thongs, greased up for the occasion, dancing and partying like this. They have dress codes, and most major cities they have for a very long time. If someone shows up to a Pride parade wearing a gimp costume that has a massive dildo on the very front of it and it's bobbling around and looks like an erect penis or something like that, that is against the codes of the dress code of the public Pride event. There are private Pride events where things get a lot more XXX, but for public Pride events, there's a certain degree of acceptability. If someone is running around naked at a Pride event, that is on them. The Pride coordinators, when you have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, set rules and they try to adhere to them the best they can. And yes, of course, in any mass gathering, there are going to be people who attempt or do break rules. But that was another part that was really upsetting to me. And I don't really want to have to keep rehashing this, but this was something that I was bringing up at the time. This is from wrestling. This is from wrestling. This was from, if I'm not mistaken, the 80s. This is a tag team known as Demolition. This is an event in which parents take their children to. And there's no way you can look at this and tell me that this isn't the most extreme form of kink, if someone wants to interpret it that way. In the 80s, this was completely fine because, again, this was a heteronormative event featuring wrestlers who would, again, be wearing thongs, be very sweaty, and be grabbing each other and throwing them around a room. Multiple times. There was not a single piece of outrage over this. I mean, I'm talking about in modern day. Maybe there was back in the day, I'm sure. There could be. But I'm talking about in the modern discourse where this in public, if it's gay, is bad, but if it's straight, it's okay. It just, to me, seemed like there's a massive hypocrisy going on here, which angered me to no end. Like, if it is about the kids, these are toys. These are toys that are sold to children. I mean, if they want to buy them, adults can buy and collect them as well. I mean, it gets even worse. There was video games. There was video games that kids could buy and play with, wearing, again, what you would describe as being kink at Pride. If you saw this walking down the street, it would be like, well, I mean, just certain things should be kept in the house. You know, these are officially licensed video games, officially licensed toys. And again, no one was flipping out about this. No one was freaking out about this. They were freaking out because it's happening to be involved in the LGBTQ plus community, and we haven't normalized certain forms of sexuality. So, I mean, you can fast forward to 6 months ago, where Riley and Doe were effectively beginning to argue about this. I want to pull up, if I can, 1 second, so I can read out verbatim what the tweet that started this entire fiasco was, so we can kind of get a bit more of an origin story. Probably should have had this before I started talking about this, but you know how it is. The internet. It's a complicated place. Okay, so this was Doe, and I want to read this. I want to read its tweet verbatim right now. So this is what it said. Some people like feet. If you go shoeless to a public event because your partner likes feet, you're not involving children in a sexual act. That was the tweet that began this entire fiasco that we find ourselves today. This was months ago. Now, I'm sure at this point, because everyone has seen the video, everyone has heard the discussion, what came from that was Riley Grace Roshong accusing Doe of either purposefully enabling rhetoric that is useful to pedophiles, or doing so unintentionally, but still having the same effect. And the effects that had on Doe at the time were obviously massive. It received an incredible amount of hatred online. It received an incredible amount of accusations of pedophilia. It received a whole bunch of different communities going after it. And that also coincided when it was beginning to argue quite a bit with Destiny and Destiny's community about what exactly Should someone be allowed to use it, its pronouns? Are it, its pronouns valid? Things of that nature. Now, I'm someone who has been falsely accused of things I did not do. When I was doing fundraising for Palestinian relief efforts, if you don't know this or remember this back in the day, Destiny ended up doing a tweet and made a tweet about me that said, directly funding Hamas. Yikes. And then linked to a separate organization that I was not fundraising for. Because I guess he hadn't done his due diligence or realized that while they share the same name, this is a separate organization in Canada, and they do not, if you are fundraising for a specific charity, such as Palestinian relief efforts, then take your money that you have been giving or fundraising, in my case it was thousands of dollars, and then put that towards the international headquarters. But that didn't matter. The backlash was incredibly intense, and both my online and offline life got a lot harder for it. Just, you know, every single time I was going on Twitter, I mean, that was what provoked it. And then of course we got other big creators like Sargon of Akkad, who was going after myself and every other person who fundraised, which, by the way, that was one of the more wholesome moments in online leftism since Bernie Sanders, was just seeing all these different groups, Sean, Vosh, not fans of each other, everyone fundraising hundreds of thousands of dollars for Palestinian relief efforts, and then people like Sargon being like, well, it seems like they are directly funding Hamas if it is this organization, or if it's this organization. And it got to the point where, beyond getting death threats and email, which I ended up showing on stream, I ended up confronting Destiny about it. He did not back down from his statements, and I had to reach out to the organization itself and get an official statement from them stating that not a single cent from the money that I had fundraised was going to go towards the international organization. It was going directly to the Palestinian relief efforts that I had stipulated I wanted the money to go towards. And even then, there was not like an apology or anything. It was just, I'm happy that I could hold you accountable. Which is pretty ridiculous, because when you are a large streamer or a large personality, and I'm including myself in this, and you put a statement out there about another content creator, about another streamer, and then that results in thousands of people believing that statement, thousands of people thinking something, thousands of people going after that person because now they've effectively been weaponized against them. Because yes, what is more important than this goofball on the internet who's fundraising for a terrorist organization? Like, that's terrible. We have to make an example of this person, kind of stuff. And Doe ended up receiving a whole bunch of backlash for this. Now, this was 6 months ago, and I guess if you weren't tapped in online, or you weren't a part of these circles, or you weren't listening to what's happening, you probably didn't realize the severity or how intense it was getting, or the backlash that was happening to Demon Mama as well at the time for openly supporting Doe. If any of us, any of either myself or other people who were coming to Doe's defense at the time, or were involving themselves in the Kink and Pride debate, such as Big Joel, Jack Saint was another one, we would be labeled, and I'm using a quote here, as the Down Syndrome Avengers by Destiny, because apparently we were all coordinating efforts to try and either attack him or his community or something of that nature, and it continued to just grow and blow out of proportion. And not a lot of people, in fact, none of us have, Reddits with hundreds of thousands of people in it who can, utilize and weaponize memes or things like that, or of that nature. So this was all going on for a very, very long time. And the reason I'm telling this backstory is that I know a lot of people were upset, or maybe really taken aback, the other day when Doe on Saturday finally confronted Riley, and it told firsthand its story about child sexual abuse in incredibly graphic detail. And I could see the way the chat was responding, both when I was reporting on this and even live when it was happening, in both, if you look at Riley's chat, if you look at Doe's chat, the way everyone is just like, whoa, holy fuck, what the fuck? Like, why didn't you prepare us for something like this? Because if you're typing on Twitter, and this is about 6 months ago, if you're typing on Twitter and you just have the static words, I'm a CSA survivor, and blah, 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 that's just, kind of rude for you to be coming at me in this direction or accusing me of pedophilia, that's all you see. You just see that line. You see that line, and it's just in static text, and that's pretty much it. It doesn't really make you comprehend the severity and true, utter horror of some of the stories of CSA survivors. And I say this because What did shock me at that time was that Doe had the bravery to do that in front of thousands and thousands of people, and now tens of thousands as it has been part of the actual cycle, you know, the content cycle. That's what was surprising to me. Not hearing the graphic details of that story, because I've heard them before. On my mother's side of my family, the indigenous side of my family, there is multiple women who have just as horrifying stories that I had grown up hearing at a young age. And it definitely does something to you, because I can distinctly remember having that feeling. For maybe it's just that people talk about innocence lost, like some people like just have that kind of, you know, moment of clarity when their parents die or something like that. I'm fortunate, I've never lost my parents, but it definitely gives you that feeling like, holy fuck, like the world can be a beautiful place, but it can be filled with some really, really evil, fucked up people. And if you just see a tweet, if you just see someone type out, I'm a CSA survivor, I'm something like that, you don't actually think about the horrifying details of what that entails. And when Doe was going through all of that, it never had the opportunity to truly explain that to people, even people who were accusing it of being a pedophile, even people who were accusing it of being like the worst things or enabling pedophiles or whatever it was. And it just had to sit there and then listen to the online discourse as people continued to say and do horrible and horrifying things. And one of the aspects about all of this that I think was really important about Doe finally, you know, telling that story and having one react in the way they did is because it makes it very real. Because we can talk about hypotheticals all day. We can talk about how if someone has a humiliation fetish and they're in the presence of someone who has a scat fetish, and if the person with the humiliation fetish defecates themselves and it's in the purview of the person with the scat fetish, and the scat fetish person is now aroused by that, and both of them have performed these acts with a playground like 100 meters away or something like that, then both of them are directly endangering children. Like, we can talk about those scenarios all the time, but real abuse to children statistically happens from family members and close friends. And the real abuse to children is not these incredibly isolated examples of this will trigger this event, which will trigger this event, which could potentially make children witness from a distance two people who are fully clothed but are soiling themselves and orgasming simultaneously or something like that. It is the stories like Doe described, and they are shocking and they are horrifying. And I think collectively, all of us want to work. Even, and I'm including Riley in this. Even Riley want to work towards making that not happen to anyone ever. Of course, that's I think something that would be universal. It doesn't even matter what part of the political, like every single square except for libertarians and ANCAPs, every single square on the political aisle is probably completely on board with that. The other thing, I'm going to say this as a brave little cis boy, is that for online harassment, and as it occurs, because Twitch has a really big online harassment problem, and it's getting a lot of exposure now, which is really good. I'm very happy that they are starting to actually acknowledge it, because a lot of people are making noise about it. But when I get, say, attacks, when I get people in this community, it's usually specifically because I've done something. It's usually because I've made a video about another content producer, or someone has falsely accused me of funding Hamas, and then yes, I will get a whole bunch of people in my chat calling me a terrorist, calling me a whole bunch of nasty things. That's when I get it. I don't know if a lot of y'all watch a ton of trans streamers. If you're a fan of the Serfs, you probably do, and I do, because I find a lot of them very entertaining, and I find a lot of them very informative. And boy, like, it never fails. It doesn't matter if I'm watching a gamer like Nicotine or Casey Explosion, or I'm watching an intersectional non-binary feminist like Lumi Roo. It doesn't matter who it is. If they are trans, they will get regular hate in their chat on a daily basis just for being who they are. And I know a lot of people right now are going to be like, whoa, here comes Lance with the virtue signals. Your little cis virtue signal is going off. Yeah, I'm not doing this the virtue signal. This is definitely an acknowledged point of privilege, if you want to talk about points of privilege. Where I, as a brave little cis boy, don't ever have to deal with that. I do not have people popping in here and being like, oh, look, cis, Disgusting. But I have been in Demon Mama's stream when she was posted on 4chan, and people on 4chan were specifically saying to target and harass this person because they are, quote, a monster, or they are, quote, degenerate, or, quote, inhuman, or anything like that, and then seeing Nazis just flood on in. Nazis just flood on in. And I called in during that stream, and I tried to support her as best I could, because I thought it was pretty ridiculous, and I was trying to make fun of the Nazis. And she's strong. She's really strong. In fact, you know, like, every single trans streamer who gets up and does a stream knowing that that is just going to be a reality, knowing that that's just going to be a part of the experience, doesn't matter if you're playing video games. That doesn't matter if you're doing something completely apolitical. Doesn't matter what you're doing, that you are going to be flooded with that kind of shit, right? And yesterday that happened again. Demon Mama was streaming. Demon Mama got, I think, 6 or 7 hate raids. I can't show them on screen because, you know, she's now been banned. But every single one of those hate raids had the same thing. It had a name that was related to, obviously, all of this conversation, a name related to all these topics, and it would say something to the effect of, deer is not a valid gender, or Demon Mama is like obese or something like that. It would have just horrifying things. And then 6 or 7 people, and I don't even know how they do this. I don't know how you can create an account and then raid in with 7 people. I don't know how that was continuously happening, but I witnessed it happen, and they would raid into the stream, and then they would, as long as they would last, because it would only last as long as Demon Mama could clip them, like take a screenshot of it, and then, you know, they would unleash all their hate speech, and then they would all get banned, and then it would just happen again and happen again over the course of about 9 hours. It happened multiple times. And then it was around the Dylan Burns segment that Demon Mama's stream got taken down off Twitch. In relation to that Dylan Burns segment, I will say that I completely understand why Dylan Burns would defend a friend. I completely understand that. I have done the same thing for both the right reasons and the wrong reasons online, and I've been called out for both instances. I also understand why Dylan would support and defend someone who does real-world activism in an arena where real-world activism, especially related to the LGBTQ+ community, is in incredibly short supply, which of course is Maryland, right? I understand both of those, but that does not excuse the history of everything that's happened here. That does not, like, everyone who has now come online and gotten very, very mad for something that, yes, I can easily condemn. I don't think you should be adding the Maryland bar, which, by the way, if you're a law student, you're not up for the bar right now. You do that after you graduate law school, and then that happens. So doing that now as some kind of preemptive strike is also a little silly. But yes, easily I can condemn that unequivocally. There's no question about that. It didn't start there though, and that's the problem with all this. It didn't start in the last week. It didn't start on Saturday because of a bad take. Like I just said, I wanted to explain this whole story to explain how long this entire thing has been going on. And again, all of the abuse that Doe has been getting along the course of this. I don't need to bring up the horrible things that have happened to Doe. I'm sure you're all well aware of it by this point. But again, this kind of activity is making this whole place unsafe. And that continues if you are on the other side of this, if you are a staunch supporter of Demon Mama, and now you're using this as a galvanizing moment to now get angry and then do the exact same thing. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing and go after Riley Grace's community or go after Dylan's community. It's like that never-ending battle, right? One person punches someone else in the chest, the next person pulls out a knife, the next person pulls out a gun, the next person pulls out a bomb, the next person pulls out a nuke. It'll never end if that is the cycle. And by the way, mass flagging, if this was mass flagging, because I don't have direct evidence that it was mass flagging yet, but mass flagging is something that has also happened to me successfully twice. I've had my original YouTube channel, the Serfs TV, taken down because of a mass flagging campaign. I know it was a mass flagging campaign because YouTube apologized for it. I had my second channel, the Serf Times, also taken down because of a mass flagging campaign, and again, they apologized for it. These were done after I'd made prominent videos on right-wing figures. This is the tactics of the right. So do not use those tactics. Do not use these tactics where everyone goes out and it's like, okay, let's coordinate and let's all mass flag this other creator that we all now despise. Let's coordinate and do that, because none of that makes any of this safer. It's going to then become a game of every single person online at one point or another is going to be who's on the chopping block today. And all these social media companies that have literally millions of people using their platforms are going to just have to play catch up and run around and then suddenly look at each one of these on a case-by-case basis. In the interim, someone can be shut down for 7 days and lose 7 days worth of income or something of that nature. Like, none of that is making any of this safer. Honestly, is one of the biggest problems with all this. And if you want to talk about someone like effectively now being losing their income, if you want to talk about like a worker, Demon Mama can no longer stream for 30 days on Twitch. We will see. Hopefully there will be an appeal or something to that effect. And yes, she can stream on YouTube, but that doesn't change the point. So that's got to be my biggest takeaway from all of this. To be totally honest, that's the history of everything that's happened up until this point. That's the conflicts that are ongoing, and that's in essence this never-ending perpetual cycle that I would like to see stop. Especially, like, you know, one of the creepiest things the other day when I was like just going through the tweets and seeing what other people were tweeting about all this was seeing right-wingers popping up gleefully being like, leftist firing squad. Yeah, leftist firing squad. Because hey, don't get me wrong, we do the exact same thing. When righties are fighting online, we're going to be like, oh, let them fight. Let them fight. But it is a sobering moment to be like, well, who's ultimately winning here? People who are going to be the enemies of all groups at the end of the day. Leftist infighting is literally a meme. Yeah. No, it absolutely is. Please, again, what you should be doing at times like this is offering support, especially support to people who have come out and talked about how they are CSA victims. That includes Doe. That includes other people online who are getting very deeply affected by all this, because it's very difficult for them to have to listen to. It's very difficult for them to have to talk about, and it's incredibly difficult. I can't even imagine for this to now have become the latest content cycle online, where people are going to make videos about this, and people are going to talk about this, and people are going to replay these clips over and over and over again. And it does take an incredible amount of bravery for someone like Doe to have made the statements that it made. Yeah, it's pretty much my rant. I'll now take questions. One question, only one.
This will come down to who can deliver the lower propensity and mid propensity voters.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we will build a ladder to heaven to deliver you the daily news. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are your most humble of clownish jesters. To our lords, Trevor R. and Alexander Thaler, you have our undying fealty. To our knights of the round table, Nate, that one guy, Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariana McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Ants Are Still Running the World, Coulter Smith, Tom Groh, Val 9000, Jenna Tal, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Riley and Anna, Omni, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Janis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Chronic to Hemphog, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We shall meet you in the tavern, and we raise a drink, and we salute you.